Are we streaming?
All right, guys, we are live here at the Action Sports Show, coming to you from Jeremy McGrath's Trophy Room. Myself, Dan McGranahan, the legend Grant Langston, and the king, Jeremy McGrath himself, and we're going to be talking all kinds of Supercross action. It was a really, really awesome weekend. I think everybody was pumped. A1, I mean, emotions couldn't have been higher, so we're going to get into it. Listen, we got a lot going on for you guys today, so tune in. Make sure to share this with all your friends. Share it on your page. We want you guys to share it because we want to hear from all of you guys. And posting your questions, because we're going to be taking a lot of questions today. One of the things that we wanted to make sure and do was take a lot of your questions today, so let's do that. And we want to knock this thing out of the park, and you guys can do that. We want to throw a big shout-out to Toyota Escondido for backing this show, to Transworld, to Jeremy McGrath, to Attain Media, and we'll throw some love to Grant Langston for being here, too, because he's a bad man. So we also have a little prize where we're going to be giving away a Jeremy McGrath jersey to a lucky person right here on the show. The person that we deem, the three of us, mostly whatever they say, because I do whatever they say.
We're going to call it the most interesting question?
The most interesting question of the night is going to get one of these. So that will be awesome. So enough of me. I know you guys really want to hear from these guys. So, guys, what we had Anaheim 1. It happened. It finally happened.
Let the host go first.
Oh,
what do you think, MC?
Well, I think it certainly, was awesome. I mean, I think there was a lot of hype going into Anaheim 1. We know there always is, right? I mean, there's always going to be like, oh, this guy, oh, that guy. And I think that, I mean, we didn't get cut short on entertainment for sure. I think the racing was good. Mm-hmm. Lights racing was good. The 450 class, we knew there were some guys that were going to be fast, I mean, battling more than maybe one or two. And that's what we saw. I think, for me, my biggest surprise was, first of all, Tomac got the whole shot, which was amazing.
Yeah,
he nailed the start. I was jumping around like a kid, and I was like, "Wow, I can't believe that just happened." And then surprisingly enough, later on, he ended up making that mistake and throwing it away. It was pretty crazy night of events. And I mean, I don't know how many people were surprised. Obviously, we had a lot of hype and a lot of talk about Roxon for the race, but Muscan's the one that had all the momentum, and then he comes out on top. So, all in all, I was pretty psyched. It was a good night of racing.
No, I enjoyed it a lot too. I think anytime you come off a long off season, even with Monster Cup, it's a little bit of a tease for people because some riders have not left their current team and gone to their new team, and some riders have been released and gone to their new team. So that's always one of those ones where it's kind of up in the air, and we know how it is. It's all what happens at Anaheim 1, and I think there was a lot of hype coming to this. From my side, I think as a fan these days, what made it exciting was the only rider that's in that class that's won a championship before is Chad Reed.
Right.
And realistically, he's not in championship form, and I don't think it's a realistic chance of him going out for it. So in my mind, coming into this was there's going to be a new champion. And not only that was who's it going to be, because when there's a new champion, there's not someone that's like, oh, he's the man. There's not a Mcgrath coming in with 3 titles or 4 titles. There's not a Carmichael. It's fresh off the bat. Who's going to take the reins? Some people think it's Muskin. Some people think it's Tomac. Some people that think Roxon was going to come back would do well. And Roxon rode fantastic, and I think he did what a lot of people wanted that had been waiting so long to see, which was come out and have a solid ride. And he surprised me because I know you had him picked for 3rd. Yeah. And I said I thought it was going to be good or bad.
Not rubbing it in.
And he was right there. No, he was closer than any of us. I didn't think it was going to go that way. So I think Roxon showed a really great amount of
great composure.
As well as just maturity as well. And I really think if he didn't have such a horrible start, he would have been in a podium position. But with that, the 450, there was a lot of excitement of who's going to be the next guy. And then the 250s, that's usually always the question, which is who's going to be the guy of the season. And Mcgrath came out swinging. So I thought for an opening round, we got treated to a lot of good racing.
Yeah, there's no question about that. The energy was amazing. It was great to walk through the pits and just see all the new teams, all the new bikes, all the new gear.
That's always fun. See the people, And
yeah. I enjoyed it. I mean, having the whole day there, getting to see the fans, getting to see all my friends from whatever pit it actually ends up being, and then getting to watch the race with my wife and kids and just cheering like a little kid up there. So that was cool. I think.
What's it like for you guys to walk through those pits knowing that You're no longer sitting on the other side of the fence all the time signing autographs. Like sometimes you guys are just walking through the pits like everybody else. Not exactly like everybody else, but I always wonder, what's it like?
It's different for him because he can't turn his head without being stopped. And even for someone like myself, it's kind of fun because you see a lot of familiar faces. It's like back to school, and you know, there's a lot of people. And I've been around a lot less than Jeremy. I don't know how many Anaheim ones have you been to straight?
I was actually thinking about that.
It's probably quite a lot, huh?
I've probably been going to Anaheim one since probably haven't missed one since 1989.
Wow.
So
longer than most of the kids that are racing out
right,
there.
and I raced in 1989. That was like my first time ever racing Anaheim. So
you were going before that as a fan.
So I was going as a fan and as an amateur rider. So, I mean, it was kind of hit or miss before that because you never know. We were racing Golden State amateur races and stuff back in the day. So.
What do you remember about going as a fan to going there and it's your job to race?
I couldn't explain that one because my first time to Anaheim was to race. So it was a little overwhelming, just everything. You know, I thought I was kind of prepared, but when I got there, it was different. The whoops were bigger. The track was more technical because I'd done one or two Europeans.
Noise was more loud.
Yeah, it just seemed like all of a sudden everything that you were used to was just magnified. And for my first race, excuse my French, but I was scared shitless. Like I really thought I came off an injury, but I was thinking I was kind of prepared. But when I got there, there was just so much. I think overall it was a little overwhelming for me.
It really is. I mean, I think Anaheim itself, it
probably
helped me a lot to go there as a fan first to sort of experience and be able to look and see what the riders are actually experiencing. You know, for me, it was a dream to always get to Anaheim, and it's always still funny to think about today that Anaheim Supercross is the biggest Supercross, one of the biggest for sure, if not the biggest, and it's the first race on the tour. So years ago,
which has the most anticipation with that.
Right.
Yeah.
We used to start years ago in Orlando that we go to Orlando, Houston, and then that would take some of the pressure off for Anaheim, right? Because it was round 3. But now it's like you got, if not the biggest Supercross of the year, you got that as your first race of the year. Nobody knows where anybody stands. You hope all your training and everything is going to pay off at that night, but. Anaheim's it's one of those places. It can be magical, but it can also be disastrous. And I always enjoyed it because, the fan noise. I mean, I think being local really helped too. So, it's one of those, Anaheim's got that mojo, man. It's cool.
Yeah, you got all your friends there. Your parents are there.
Right.
It's also, if you think about it, it's become the home of Supercross. Like if you go back in time, it's basically become Daytona is to NASCAR.
Yep.
It's sort of the home.
That's a good point.
It's one staple point that's never changed. Other cities have come and gone, or they've had stadiums changed or replaced. But I just feel like Anaheim's always been that staple that's been there every single time.
Yep.
I like that.
Good stuff.
I like that a lot. Where'd you guys watch it from?
I think the riders certainly feel the same way. I mean, the same way we felt when we were there, they're getting the same pressures. I mean, sometimes you don't necessarily see the best, Jason Anderson or the best Cole Seeley or the best Eli Tomac at round 1 because everyone, deals with the pressures differently. And obviously we saw that happen to Eli there and had to crash.
Where'd you guys watch it from?
I watched it from we were in the Knothole Club, I guess it's called.
I thought they changed the name.
It's called St. Archer's, I think, now.
Okay.
It's up a couple levels.
I actually just hung out with some friends and kids and a few things, and we were just down in rider seating.
Okay.
So
perfect.
Nothing too fancy, but at least we were all in the same section.
Yeah.
Knothole's pretty nice up there too. Obviously, you get a
Agreed.
bit better bird's eye view, but sometimes when you're down right on track level, you get a different perspective as well. So I like mixing it up. I think every time you move around, it kind of gives you a nice change of
I think
scenery.
Knothole, rider seating, those are both super fun because part of Anaheim 1, it's like social. It's like you guys said. It's about seeing a lot of the people that you don't see all the time. And so I think it's the opportunity to see those people is a really good thing. So I like that. Let's get into dissecting some of what we saw out there because it was definitely, a lot of action. That's for sure. Let me pull up some of my questions here for you guys.
Oh,
yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
Did you study?
Yeah.
No.
I got some cheat notes. If
I
you
stopped
want.
studying years ago. I did watch the race, though, and I paid attention. So.
I know, but it's so funny afterwards when you try and think, wait, where did so-and-so finish?
We're actually about to see how much I paid attention.
Yes. You know the internet will be very kind to
Right.
you.
Oh, they
so
everyone
feel
always
free
is.
to say whatever.
Thank you for being kind, everybody.
Okay, first question. Did Roczen do enough to absolutely silence the critics 100%?
I think so.
I think without a doubt he did. And I think last week when we made our predictions, I picked him as third, and I thought third or fourth, whatever, would be a good one because he would fly under the radar a little bit and take some of that pressure off, right? And it worked out. It worked out that way. Had he not made that mistake where he almost came off the bike, he probably would have been.
He would have
been up there,
striking, yeah.
right up there. But,
plus his bad start, I think.
Right, that didn't help. But man, was he making some in turn one? He was making some moves around that outside
momentum.
Yeah, he was. I think for me, I was stoked as a fan to see how good he was riding.
It's like when the gate had dropped, it was what you kind of thought would happen. Like the switch flipped, and he did what his body knows how to do.
I think he really stuck to the game plan because
Right.
I'm pretty sure him and his entire crew had a game plan. And that impressed me. He had that one little moment where even he said, whoa, that almost got me. And we've seen it so many times in recent years where sometimes it's almost the simplest of things that takes a rider's down. Example, Eli Tomac leading the main event. That section wasn't basic, but that's a section where any rider is going to be bummed out that they threw it away there because it's not difficult, but I think it's an area if you just relax mentally a little bit.
Right.
To me, it looked
Caught
like
him off
Tomac
guard.
just relaxed just a little bit mentally, probably came down the straight, was gathering his thoughts, and it just was that mistake.
Well, that is my second question.
It was huge.
That is my second question for you. Did Tomac throw the championship away?
Well, that's a different question.
Well, hey, before we do that, I got something funny to say. Do you guys see Roczen's interview? Did you see?
Which one?
If you guys go back and look at his interview when he's holding, he was holding his can, you know, and then his hand almost looked like it was like a fake arm.
It's got a bit of that like the claw look. You know, what was that movie with Jim Carrey? Like the old.
I was thinking it was more like the one with Happy Gilmore. Was that with Chubbs?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, with Chubbs.
Yeah, it's caddy.
So I was like, oh,
It's like
if
it's
like
rigid.
Zoom down on his hand, you're like, man, his hand almost looks like a mannequin hand because he never moved it. And so, but I mean, again, if there really isn't that much movement there, I mean, he absolutely killed it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think he definitely rode better than his own probably expectations.
I think if he had got the whole shot, I mean, who knows? It's always easy to say, oh, if. But
Right.
the way he rode, let's just say he rode the same way. With the whole shot, he may have won that main event.
I think
he would
that's
have.
very reasonable consideration.
But
Right.
I almost think that what happened was probably a blessing. He got a bad
agree.
start,
Yep.
and he probably told himself, don't panic. You're good enough. You'll get a good result out of this. And I think a fourth from where he started was really well.
Though, I agree. I totally think that he was going hard, and then when he made that mistake, he's like, okay.
It was a little bit like
He had a little
take a deep
conversation with
breath,
himself
yeah.
and said, okay, look,
Stick to the game
I
plan.
need to chill out. I can start the series with a third or a fourth.
Yep.
And this will work. I can build on this. And I think after he had that issue, he rode within himself, which still I thought was amazing.
Well, here's another way to put it. How many people, if you were betting, would have said leaving Anaheim 1, Tomac would be ahead in the points over Roczen? I think more people would have taken that bet.
For sure.
So if you look at it that way, it sort of flipped the table a bit. To answer your question, I don't think the championship's over by any means.
Yeah, so on to
Eli's,
the Tomac question. Yeah, I don't think so.
He's got the capability, but he's got to cut out these little mistakes. But the little mistakes are costing him huge. He lost 25 potential points on the weekend.
Yeah.
So not only are you losing points, so now your competition's gaining. It makes it that much harder if you got guys like Muskin and that are very consistent.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, let's say he goes and rattles off 3 more wins, and Muskin's second, third. He's still going to lead the points. That means there's no room for error. So for Tomac, it's really you got to just fine tune those little things.
In some weird way, I think Tomac is now in a position where he rides his best. He doesn't have any pressure. He can go out and he can race hard. He can try and win races. Basically, it's right now just win or whatever, right? Last year when he had problems, he just kept reeling off the wins. I mean, it was a little
when he
bit
had nothing to lose, he was at his best.
And I think he rides really well. I mean, it was a little confusing to me when he had such a big lead and he could see Barsha in the other lane. I don't know about you, but I mean, I always just went like, okay, there's my competition.
Try and keep
I'm just
it,
going to go his speed.
maintain it,
and then figure out, I'll just go his speed. Every time I want to see him, I want to see him in that section, and then you know how fast to go. And I'm not sure what Eli was, if he had a lapse in concentration, whatever he had, but that little spot, like you said, can get you, and it got him big time. So
it's not the most simplest of sections, but it's not a section where you would think someone's going to crash or make that error.
Right.
But funny enough, did you guys see Muskin almost did the same thing?
Well, before we jump to Muskin, because we got some questions, I did see that, but what about the pants coming apart? What about the fact that it looked like he was having a meltdown? Like, it was very confusing from a fan's perspective. Now, some stuff came out later, like, well, he had hurt his shoulder, and, is the bike not running right? Like, it was really hard to tell what was going on, frankly.
All right, so I know you guys probably, like, rewound it and then put it in slow-mo and back and forth and back and forth. That's what I did. So the pants falling off was a freak deal, right? His rear wheel, at least from my perspective and what I saw, his rear wheel buzzed the back of his pants and ripped him down, right? So that broke the buckle open, unsnapped him and all that. Strange, right? Why didn't he fix it when he got up the first time? I don't know. Secondly, when he started to go and then he put his pants back on, then he just started cruising around. That tells you that either he started to go, but then he was pretty sore, I think. And then I think the bike was pretty bent up. However, we've all ridden our bikes when they're bent up. More than one point would be good. So for me, it was even for you guys. I was as confused as everybody, and I'm close to the team, obviously. So still, even at the middle end of the week here, I'm still like a little bit baffled by it.
Yeah, I think it was a freak deal. I think when he got up, like most riders, especially when you had a comfortable lead, I think it's very easy to panic initially, which is get up and go.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And maybe he didn't think at that point, oh, this is a big deal, because that old saying, hindsight is a lot easier. If he knew the pants were going to be an issue, that's something different. But I agree. When he jumped up, you would have thought he would try to have just snapped it there. And then when he slowed down, I think the issue is bigger than the bike being bent or a mental meltdown or anything.
I don't know. When I first saw it and he got up and he was all off balance, did you think for a second like he hit his head maybe a little bit?
Oh, that's an interesting concept.
It crossed my mind, but I thought more. It looked more like a frantic thing, like I just threw the lead away in a stupid position.
Well, in the way the jump was, where he was trying to get up and like he was having to back up on the jump. He was a little off balance.
Yeah,
I kind of marked it down to that, but at the same time, when you go back and watch the crash in slow mo, I mean, he went in.
He has a good
shoulder.
You see
head,
that? Yeah,
and
it was a good slap to the ground.
And look, we've raced Anaheim a bunch. That dirt out there is like this marble right here or whatever. It's freaking hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just I'm stoked that he's going to be riding this week. We'll see how sore he is for sure. But like you said, there's no chance he can sit back and get thirds and fourths now. He's got to go ahead and try and win the race.
And he has the speed. He has the machine. He has the whole package.
You had said before, someone like Tomac may benefit from those great starts, with
right.
I mean, great meaning
great,
the metal great,
yeah, the steel great, yeah.
Which has now led to a great start. So if that can help him, and he cuts out those mistakes, I think Tomac is the kind of guy that can get on a roll and win races and make the championship seem blown wide open. I think Roxon's going to pick it up. I think there's a few things that are going to happen.
Well, here's one other observation we could go by that too, right? I mean, Tomac, we know the great Tomac. We saw some of the greatest Supercross races last year. I mean, that one in Salt Lake,
man.
I think was maybe one of the best ones I've ever seen. He started out in front. Is he a guy that we don't normally see out in front? We see him catching up and passing everyone and getting in front. So, I guess time will tell, but we know he can lead races. We know he can win races. Can he start out in front and still win races, It's a unique position for him.
Sometimes for people when they're not used to it, it is a shock. But I think for him, it would make life easier because he wouldn't have to try.
It always makes
push.
life easier, which is exactly what I'm sure he was going into the race going, hey, a top 5 would be awesome. off the gate.
just
A
get
top
good
5
points.
off the
Yeah,
start.
yeah.
No, a top 5 off the start. He probably thought, I can win this race from anywhere. A top 5 on the start would be great.
I got it, yeah.
But then when I was watching the start, when he took off, I was like, in 1 millisecond, I'm like, he got the whole shot, and so stoked for him. So, anyways, I think in his case, the Steel Great was a great addition.
Yeah. That was one of the questions, actually, was how did that Steel Great? Did everybody sort of across the board just stay the same, or do you think it affected some people?
I think it levels the playing field.
Did we see that, though? Still the good guys were out front, right?
Yeah. I think any start will play a role in the outcome of the race because there's usually someone that starts well that may have finished better than their pace was,
right.
and vice versa. Someone that had a bad start that came through, like a Roxon or whatever. But the results, I don't think, shocked people. So getting what Jeremy was saying, did it change things that much? Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
All I think it does now is instead of the riders looking, I want to start in this area, but let me find the best gate. Now it's pretty much like I'm going there.
Well, here's the thing I saw also is what we did see at Anaheim is that, typically you want the, starting box here. You're going to start a little left of the box. Those 4, 5, 6 spots are like where everyone goes. We saw at Anaheim hole shots coming from the right side of the box and out there. Those were not bad. You could come in, which you don't typically see on a dirt start because you need that advantage of having more momentum, with which the Steel Great provides. So I think we did see more competitiveness when it came to the first turn from the outside. The inside half, I think it stayed the same, really. So
you didn't hear anything about people trying third gear starts or anything like that?
I didn't hear any of that,
No.
No.
I think basically adding to what you were just saying is it's now opened up the playbook where it's not like there's 5 or 6 primo spots.
Now there's 15,
maybe 15. Yeah, maybe the very edges might not be good, but in some of these tracks, if you're a good jumper, going on the outside and risking it, or not, or if you didn't have a choice, say you had a bad heat race,
right.
It's not that big a deal now because if you get the jump, you've got a better angle into those first turns.
If you really got enough grip in turn 1, you can late break. Everyone on the inside
run
has
it
to shut
deep.
off. You can run it in there hard, and they had a little bit of a ridge on the outside where you could get up against if you wanted. So we didn't see a lot of guys blowing turn 1. So in my mind, it was a success. I think the new gate thing is pretty good.
So what is it going to take for let's take Pike, for instance. What's it going to take for Pike to be seen as a podium guy? Because I think the guy gets overlooked.
How about some podiums?
Okay, simple answer, right?
right. Yeah, I guess that's one of them.
Is he on the cusp of that?
Well, let me just say this. He was by far the biggest surprise to me.
He rode very well.
Pike rode amazing, and he was up front for a lot of the race.
Yeah.
And he did move back a few positions at the end, but I can say that he definitely was my biggest surprise. I didn't expect him to be up there. We know even when he started out in front with the guys, you just never know how long that's going to last.
Yeah.
We know he's got some endurance and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, great. What is that?
That's a cop in Rancho Bernardo. So
Rancho.
Like wherever we are, Encinitas, whatever this community is.
Yeah.
But if the police are out here, then obviously it's a major jewel heist or something.
Yeah, right. That's what I was wondering. My kids over there didn't burn any.
They're pushing buttons.
Anyways, back to Pike. Yeah, I think he did. But what's it going to take to move him up a couple spots? I honestly think it's going to take mistakes from guys. He got Eli made a mistake. A few guys made mistakes, but man, more power to him. He rode awesome.
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah, no, I think with Pike, he's kind of been a little bit of that journeyman who's done it the hard way and come through the privateer ranks, and he's known as kind of the tough, hard-fought guy. But I agree with you. I think he rode very well. And when you look at it, yes, Tomac made a mistake, but it was really only Roxon that sort of got him in the end. He was in that battle, but once things settled down, he only lost that one spot. And he fought Roxon for it for a while, which doesn't surprise me with Pike. He's got that personality. But I think for him, he's never been known as a great starter either, so maybe going off the metal gate, that may help someone like him. So I think he's the kind of guy, if he gets a decent start, he's not afraid to scrap it out. And I think if he scraps it out and gets good starts, he will be on the podium.
Well, what that's going to do for him also is build more speed, right? He's going to build more speed.
Right.
So, with that being said, if you get enough chances to ride up front, everyone's pace, that's where you're going to end
That's where
up
you
eventually.
learn.
I mean,
And that's
you
where
learn. I mean,
polish those last
right, and
little few things.
It's not easy to get from the 95th percentile to the 100th percentile, and when you're riding up front with the Roxons, the Tomacs, the Andersons, the Muscans, you're going to learn that pace, and then all of a sudden you're riding at the 100th percentile in the race. So I think if he keeps getting good starts, we're going to see some of that bike up there, Pike's bike.
It'd be really awesome. So he was a big surprise, but I would say that Bam Bam was a pretty big surprise.
Yeah, that was pretty big too, I guess. Yeah, I did forget about that one, but yeah, that was pretty big. I mean, after the heat win, I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
And
the heat win didn't surprise me because I think that's
really.
Yeah, I think the kid's fast. I mean. But he
hasn't been fast. I mean, last year he wasn't.
He actually has in recent times. That's what I said before. He's always been fast, but it was maybe certain things or injuries. But then it seemed like in recent times, and I said you don't just lose your ability. I thought that he had lost mentally, whether that was motivation or the desire to win, or just there was something missing. And to me, what I saw at Anaheim was what we sort of have always expected from someone like Barsha. But I don't know if Barsha's had a hard look in the mirror and figured out I got to work on some things, but he didn't ride the piss out of that bike like he does sometimes. He wasn't on the rev limiter the entire time. He actually rode it better than I think I've ever seen him ride a 450, meaning just generally, just flowing with the bike, looking comfortable, not looking wild and out of control. And let's be honest, looked like a guy that's desperate for a ride, and maybe that's what it took, is something like this for him to have to hit the reset button and come in just as basically like coming out as a rookie trying to prove yourself all over again.
Well, I think he's in a better position than when you're a rookie.
Yeah.
I mean, he is not going to take that position he has right now for granted anymore. And I think that, what we've seen in the past is a little bit of, stuff that you do when you're a kid. Right now, he's grown up. He's matured. He's very thankful that he got a second shot at it, and I think he's not going to let that chance slip away. He's going to do everything he can to make it right.
To me, the kid he just has a second level of talent over a lot of the other guys. Like, he's super talented. He can do anything he wants on a bike. So if he can really engage that level of maturity, the guy could be a championship threat. Like, he has the talent. There's no shortage on talent. Are you guys like maybe some of the media guys that are helping us here are being chased by the police or something? Like, I don't know, something's happening not too far from here.
There's something happening around in the neighborhood. Yeah,
I keep thinking, do I need to walk over there and look or what? I don't know.
It's all good though. We do have
I guess if my kids come running over here, it's gonna be a problem. So.
Yeah, usually that's
somebody must really want this jersey because they're throwing some great questions at us, and I'd say the lead one right now said, "Is that Grant or Watson?"
Grant or Watson?
Yeah.
Man, that's
a low blow, man.
That's a low blow.
If Watson's listening, he's going, wait, where are you guys going with this?
Yeah, no offense to you, man. We're just having fun with it. We do want you guys to ask some questions, though, so we are going to be giving away this jersey right here, and maybe we'll even get MC to throw a signature on it.
Throw an autograph
Maybe you
on
could sneeze into it or something. It's really cool like that. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I don't want to. I would never sneeze on someone's jersey.
Jason Anderson. Not really a shock, right? A1's been good to him many times.
Not surprised at all. Look, he's a few years ago he was back-to-back Anaheim winner, and I think Anderson's certainly. I mean, he came on strong at the end, right? He was getting close to Muscan at the end. So, in my mind, he was probably right about where he wants to be.
Anderson is fast and talented, and then once he finds his groove, I mean, we've seen it. Like, even remember last year Vegas final round. There was that battle for the lead, and I know there was a little bit of that controversy because, Tomac was backing people up. And I always said, I'm like, hey, you got to do what you got to do. I don't discredit him for that. I think if it was me, I probably would have done something very similar. But when that all happened, when it comes to winning.
I would have went and won the race. I wouldn't worry about
I know,
that.
but I would have been thinking about the big prize. I would have definitely been a bit of a dick like that and try to do something. But if you watched Anderson, I mean, he almost came out of nowhere. He was the one moving forward.
He freight trained.
And he basically just blew by everyone at the end and came out of nowhere to win that one. So he's a guy that, if he's near the front and has a decent rhythm, he's very strong at the end. He's a closer. And I think for him this year, if he can, it may sound like we're all repeating it, but cut out the little mistakes, because Anderson's been another one of those guys that's always had the speed, but I think he's made sometimes those mistakes a little bit like Tomac.
He's been a little bit of a mystery, really, right? Because he comes out in the season. I mean, even when he wins the first race, you're like, wow, he was incredibly fast. And then you go round 2 and round 3 and round 4, and you're like, is this the same guy we're watching here? So
he struggled with that, and that's something that
it's hard to keep that stuff week in, week out.
I agree with that 100%. That was one thing that I really didn't have too many years of experiencing, but trying to do 17 rounds on its own is a task, and that makes it hard.
This is his 3rd or 4th season in the 450 class.
I mean, to me, he's ready. He's matured. This
is his year, really.
He should be.
It's a year for a few guys.
But when you go to the press conference, everybody's talking to Tomac. Everybody's talking to Roxon.
Yeah, but that's the greatest thing.
Nobody's talking to Anderson, really.
In my mind, that is the greatest thing that could ever happen to a guy like him.
Yeah, because it just upsets him.
Well, no, it's motivating for sure, right? I mean, someone that doesn't think you're going to do something and then you go out and prove them wrong, there's no better feeling in the world than that. And I think that Anderson's done that several times. However, if no one's, regardless if they're talking to you or not, that equals pressure. If someone is counting on you to do something and you're supposed to be that guy and then it doesn't happen, well, then what? Next week, round 2, you're like, oh, man, I hope I get a better start. I hope I can be better than I was at round 1. Well, I mean, look, let's just call him the sleeper because he rode really well. No one expected, or at least no one was talking to him about expecting much, and he's sitting in a great spot.
He is sitting in a really great spot. Okay, let's throw this question at you guys. News this week: Malcolm Stewart's going to be on a JGR ride, and what do we expect? What's reasonable expectations?
I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, when was the last time he actually physically lined up? That's the other thing you throw in there.
Did he race last year's Supercross? He did, right?
Yeah, I mean, Roxon has been off longer than Malcolm.
Exactly, which comes back to everyone was curious about how Roxon was going to do.
Yeah.
So I think you could apply the same question to Malcolm, which is, what do you really expect? Well, I think with Malcolm, you're going to see some speed. He's a bit of a flamboyant rider. Like, he's fun to watch sometimes in practice. But I'm just a little concerned that because of the hype and a bit of that microscope on him, because now that Anaheim 1's out of the way about who's going to do what and the teams, he's now the new sort of buzz feed going around too. I just don't.
So you might feel a little pressure with that.
I think he's going to feel maybe some pressure, but I guess if I had a chance to say anything to him would be, just be yourself. Like, don't let the hype get caught up with you, because
let it come to you a little bit.
Some people are like, oh man, you're going to do great. Can't wait to see you out there. And you feel that expectation to please everybody. But I would say ride within your means. And for him, if he took a 10th place, I still think finishing and having a good solid 20 laps is the most important thing right now.
You can build on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Build up for 10th place. It's a good start.
10th place.
Well, and here's the thing. He's got, according to the reports, he's got 2 weekends on the bike before Bogle comes back, right? So, he's got to be careful that he doesn't take all that and go, man, I only got 2 weeks. I got to do something.
Right.
Because that, like what you're saying, exactly.
Prove a point.
That could backfire on him in a second. I mean, look what happened to Tomac. Look what happened to.
But that's the reality of racing. I mean, you, in some scenarios, and in this
you
scenario,
want to prove your point,
hired gun to
but
perform
you don't want to blow it
on a bike.
Right.
Right.
Well, you said 10th place, and it's like, do you know who got 12th on the weekend? Blake Baggett, who.
No, you're right. You're right.
I picked him to be way up front.
I thought Baggett was going to be around the 5th place in my books at Anaheim 1. So it just shows you that there is a ton of depth as well.
Right.
So a 10th place right now in the 450 class, I still think is very respectable.
I think most importantly, we need Malcolm Stewart out there. I mean, I think we need
personalities.
We need
characters. He's such an amazing character. He's a great writer.
Right, he's awesome.
And we want him out there. So,
and let's just hope he does well. I mean, he's certainly not going to want to squander the opportunity.
Right.
He's stoked. He knew that going into these races that he was going to be, if he didn't get a ride, he was potentially going to be a fill-in guy. So he knew what spot he was going into. let's just hope he can make something.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Another question for you. Is this finally Reed's final season?
Well, to me, he hasn't said it's been his final season yet, so this could be his final season. Look, I've been in Reed's position when it's starting to wind down, and it's a difficult position because you think, man, your brain still thinks like, I'm a winner, I can win. That's how it's supposed to be, and then you go out there and you're like, oh man, I'm not winning.
Yeah.
So it's a really difficult position to be in. You have to certainly have some strength to accept the fact that you're not going to be the winner. Of course, it's always nice to have Reed out there. In my personal opinion, I would have loved to see him come out and do better, but under the circumstances with the hurt ankle and low hours on a new bike and a new team and a new all this stuff, that kind of stuff compiles over this racing stuff. And if he doesn't, we would hope that he's going to race himself into shape. He's going to get
probably will.
He's going to get a better setup on his bike. He's going to do better as the year goes along. But other guys are going to be gaining confidence while he's losing confidence because he's getting beat. So he's going to need some good starts, and like we said, he's going to need to run up front a little more to get his head sort of back, believing that he can be up there.
Well, knowing who Chad Reed is and has been for so many years, a hero in this sport, a champion, hearing him say that he was happy with his result, I believe it was a reference to, knowing, the short time to get him there, but that doesn't really jive when you're as accomplished as he is. What do you say?
Well, I think probably for him, what he meant by that was pretty much more along the lines that I was just happy to be here kind of thing. Like in that short amount of time, we were able to get everything together. I think, long term, he's definitely not happy with 15th place finishes. But at the end of the day, he's got his own program. So theoretically, it's his own little team of people and sponsors involved. And if he's not out there, there's no one. And so there's obviously...
But he is always... Sorry to interrupt you, Grant, but he has always said, I'm not a rider, I'm a racer. He has made that statement many times throughout the course of his career that we define him in that way.
And I think that is what you want to be mentally. But it comes a point in your career, like maybe now, where maybe the window's closing a little bit and you now have to go and ride to just put it out there and keep everyone happy and do your thing. And like Jeremy said, with the anticipation of racing into shape, it doesn't make sense going to a test track to practice on the Saturday. You may as well just show up and race if you've got that credential and natural ability where you can get through it. So if he's happy with the 15th, that means there's a lot of room for improvement. So if you're Chad Reed friends,
can only go up pretty much.
Yeah. If you're Chad Reed fans, you got to be going, hey, well, each week it's going to get better and better, and he'll be there. So is it his final season? You know that old saying, you're only as good as your last race. So if it came down to Vegas and everyone else rode a little tight and they had big whoops and he won it, he might be going, hey, hire me, people. And I think if the window was open, then he would maybe go for another year. But I really think the window is closing, whether he wants to believe it or not. I think anyone realizes mentally, like I think Jeremy hit it right. Mentally, you think one way, but then the reality is something different. Right. And when that sinks in, usually at some point,
he said in the press conference he had only been on the bike 2 times before A1.
Right.
Have you ever shown up to a season only being on the bike twice?
No. That's another thing that's just going to put him at a huge deficit, right? But like I was saying earlier, at his age, you sometimes have to sell yourself on things being good. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how it is when you get older. When you're 35 and you're racing 21-year-olds that are kicking your butt, for that matter, you're kind of like, you got to be your best salesman to yourself because that's just how it goes. That's how confidence works, and like you're only as good as your last race. And look, I'm a huge Chad Reed fan. We need to see him do well. It'd be awesome. And the way the whole fantasy thing works is that you could stay on top until you're not on top, until you decide to go home. And we've only seen a few guys be able to pull that off. Dungy last year finishing his career with a championship.
Yeah.
Carmichael, of course. It's very, very difficult to do. And both those guys stopped racing when they were 27. Now, Chad is what, 35? 34? Yep. 35?
Yep. It's a big difference.
You guys know, you 35-year-olds and
so
45-year-olds.
It's a young man's game.
Right.
I really think it is.
You know how hard it is to do stuff like that at our age. So
the older I get, the more I really appreciate what everyone told me that was older than me. And the same thing now that I'm preaching to the young guys. Just wait till you're in your 30s, bro.
Right. Well,
it is. It's different.
It's that saying, like, the older we get, the faster we
were.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't do it in my 20s, and I can't do it in my 30s.
That's all right.
Well.
That's all right.
That's
Or
okay. But you let the dream go. You let the dream go. That's the good thing.
Right. You didn't try to do it, so that's good.
So, okay, talk to me a little bit about the lights, Mcgrath. Were you impressed? What was give me your take.
I mean, I was pretty impressed. He won last year's round one also, right?
Was it round one? I know he won one of them.
Mcgrath, I think, won Anaheim.
It was one.
In 17. So I wasn't surprised. I mean, Troy Lee's bikes are going good. His team is really looking really good out there. I mean, Mcgrath's strong. I think he's definitely one of the guys that's another guy that's matured, right? And this should be a year. I mean, I think when we did our predictions last week, we had the Cowie boys up there, which Cincerello did really well. Didn't get a great great start. Savacci was strong in the heat race, I thought, and then of course Plessinger was really good. I think he flew under the radar, had a great finish with the second. So the lights class didn't disappoint for me for sure.
I think with Mcgrath, when I watched him, where he to me seems like someone that may have some good longevity. He almost rides at 250 like a 450. He's pretty in control, but he's not an over-rever, but he was very smooth and methodical about everything he did, like his line selection.
It looked well within his limits.
Yeah,
huh?
and I was impressed with to me how he managed that race from the mindset. The opening lap, he took one or two defensive lines initially, and then he really just carried momentum and swept the corners and got he started one or two seasons off pretty well. He's now becoming one of the veterans of the class. I think this is his time to shine. It comes down to the same thing we see in the 450s. There's a few guys that can make it happen. You could say 3 or 4 realistically. The same goes for the 250s. I would throw Cincerello, Plessinger, Mcgrath. Justin Hill's obviously done it. He needs to find just a little bit more. He doesn't quite look like a number one rider at the moment. He looks like there's just got to fine-tune a few things. And Savacci needs to pick it up a little bit. But I think for Mcgrath, and they both, Oldenburg actually looked really good in practice from opening laps and that. He was the guy that I was like, whoa, if you talk speed-wise, he looked like he was a contender.
There's been a lot of buzz about him, too. We talked a little bit about that last week. Christian Craig finished 5th.
And Craig's, obviously, we've never doubted his talent or his ability. He's always started strong. He and Seeley remind me a lot of the way they look on a bike and how they are very strong at Anaheim, the West Coast. But I think it's a season, basically, if you look at the podium, I really think it's going to come down to those 3 guys anyway. For the title.
I think we're going to see a mix-up, but I think Mcgrath is probably, after watching him, he looks like he definitely could.
He's just got to hold it together.
Yeah, right.
And I think they got a good crew over there, like you said. It's a good team. They got good support from KTM. They got good bikes. They got
Ryder's got a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I think they've put a good, solid team, and between Troy and like Tyler Keefe and them, it's taken years to get to this point. But I think that's a team that's ready for a championship.
Well, what about, I know we talked last week a lot about Justin Hill. It says right here he finished 7th. I was pretty lackluster ride, huh? He got a pretty bad start.
But he was the fastest qualifier. He was flying.
which makes it that much more disappointing.
Well, hold on.
Right.
I watch practice, all of them, and I don't usually put that much focus on practice. But it's Anaheim 1. You want to see the new guys and who looks whatever.
Yeah.
Justin Hill never looked comfortable to me from the opening lap till the end. He threw in that one bang of a lap, but when I watched it, that looked like a rider with talent that maybe put it all together for that one lap, but it didn't look natural. It didn't come easy. He didn't back it up. It was literally that one lap. The rest of the time, to me, he looked off.
But you know what? I can sit here and tell you that I don't think that he ever looks like that. He doesn't. He really doesn't look that comfortable all the time, even when we've seen him in his best races.
I just thought he looked more comfortable last year on the Kawasaki. When I saw him on the Anaheim on the Suzuki from lap 1, something to me didn't look natural. He didn't look silky smooth.
I'll tell you what makes it difficult, and you know this, that big fat number 1 plate on there. I mean, that thing is a little heavy.
What do they
at
say?
times,
Weighs
you know
the time,
I mean?
And that could be it too, because it's not really like you could say he's only had an X amount of time on the bike. Like, this has been a bit of a process, and
with a bike change, stuff like that.
But my point is, he's been on the new bike long enough where I thought he would have looked more comfortable, especially when you're a natural.
Yeah, and the track was awesome. It didn't look super difficult, but it also didn't look ruddy. So if it was ruddy, you might see some guys looking fish out of water, right? I mean, and maybe, oh man, not looking so good. But the way the track was, and the time that he's had on his new bike, maybe your point is he should have been a little more comfortable looking. But we have that to compare to 3 guys or 4 guys in front of him that are looking buttery smooth. You know what I mean? So
here was another thought I had. I wonder if being a East Coast-based team and doing a lot of testing out there, if that didn't maybe throw some of the settings off coming to the West Coast.
Interesting.
Just a thought I had, which was, they got that red clay in North Carolina.
Lots of ruts and everything.
And then you come to Anaheim and it's more like black, a little bit marbly, rocky,
little more
clay.
slick.
I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, it gets more
Blue
slick.
groove.
So maybe, because I've noticed in the past,
some of
you
that.
can go down a road where you think everything's good, and you get to a track and you're like,
we're way off.
we missed that. We missed this one.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the starting blocks. And like Jeremy said, new team and all that. It's not always because people go, oh, that means the Suzuki sucks and the Kawi's so much better. It's not always that. It's a matter of you go somewhere new, so there's new sponsors, new parts, new people to work with. It's trying to get from point A to point B, and a lot of times, and I know, you go to C and E and D and that to get back to B, But you've tried everything, and eventually you figure out how to get there, and it's not always as easy as you think it would be.
Sometimes you get lost way over here.
Yeah,
and you're on an island, like, oh man, how do I get back to my favorite setup?
All right, let's hit the reset button.
He has a lot of factors, really. I mean, the number 1 plate is one of them. The new bike, maybe East Coast team. He's been on his new bike for a long time and practicing and doing motos, but has he been in front of anyone on that new bike? Well, I mean, then we just talked about the Anaheim crowd. So there's a lot of things going on there, and I know that he's going to want to do better than 7th, and he did throw in the fastest qualifying time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him this week.
It just didn't, like I said, that fastest lap just seemed like it was just that one lap, but the rest of the time he didn't seem like the Justin Hill of last year.
Right.
And I think that maybe, like you said, get a little more comfortable with the team, make a few changes on the bike. A lot of times, especially with these riders, it's a little bit in the head as well. So once
get
they
that
feel
round
better,
1 out of the way,
and then all of a sudden it gets better.
I mean, I know even listening to the great Ricky Carmichael. I mean, he never was really comfortable out here on the West Coast, and he didn't put a lot of stock and a lot of value in doing well out here on the West. And he would pick up the steam sort of midway, and he always said his Supercross series started at Daytona, so. Unfortunately, for a 250 West guy, you don't have that option. So he's got to use every advantage he can to get all the points he can. So we'll see what happens to him next week. But if he can throw in a qualifying time, then he can ride the pace. He just got
the potential's there.
Yeah,
to me, it just
definitely
didn't look like he was 100% dialed.
Yeah,
and
he's got some heat in the class for sure. There's no doubt.
And it's a strong class.
Yeah,
both are. I think our sport has more good riders.
What about
than
the
good
rookies?
rides.
What about the rookies? They did. Chase Sexton did really well.
Say that 5 times fast.
Justin Cooper. Cooper was down in turn 1 and finished 9th. So
he was
cool.
one that went under the radar. He's a kid, I think, with a lot of potential.
I think so too.
Is getting ready to show it when it all goes together.
Yeah, I think so.
You watch him ride, like he hits things hard. Like he's aggressive. He's throwing the bike all over the place.
It just keeps reminding me of the next generation every year that we watch, and I think you said this a little while ago. It's like they're so much more prepared at a teenage, at the early teenage years than any of us were.
Right.
I mean, that's when you started racing, right?
Right.
How old were you again?
14, yeah.
Okay, so nowadays I feel like at 14, these kids have had media training. They've got coaches. Like they're almost like computed machines. Like everyone's like, all right, we're going to mold you.
Well, how old is Cooper or Sexton? How old are those kids? They 17?
They're in their late teens.
Actually, Sexton's is, I think, 20.
Oh, okay.
He's a little bit of a late bloomer coming out.
Cooper's like maybe 17, 18? Cooper 17, 18?
No, Cooper's who I'm talking about. Sorry.
Oh,
Cooper's like 20.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. I mean, but I started racing at 14 and was in Supercross at 18 maybe, which it was a fish out of water.
Little update for you. Maybe we can get this on the screen. I'm not sure, but this is from Christian Craig's Instagram.
Wow.
So you want to show that to Langston?
That's a
Check
cankle.
that out.
That's a cankle.
That's what they call a hematoma.
Hematoma.
Is that what it's? Wow. Is that his shin or something? What is that?
That's his ankle.
Oh, that's his ankle.
He says he's racing.
So look.
He just might have a little bit of a pimp.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but that is a wow.
Well, here would be
there.
my suggestion. If you can get that into a boot, don't take it out of the boot because the swelling will not let you get it back in.
That is crazy right there. So, wow, that's.
Seems like Doc G's working on him, and they got a plan. They plan to be racing, so we'll be pulling for him. But obviously, he's going to have to overcome some obstacles there.
Yeah, injuries has always been a part of racing, and the problem is nowadays you're racing every weekend, and the need to get out and train and do all that is more than ever. So it's really hard when you got an injury because it's that balance of not doing nothing and kicking on the couch.
Right.
But you want to ride, but you got to take care of it. So you don't want to overdo it and you don't want to underdo it, if it makes sense. So fortunately, I mean, when you were racing, I don't think there were chiropractors and massage therapists. I mean, people didn't have all that around. But now guys have that luxury, man. They've and it does help our athletes stay in the game a little bit more. But
a lot more is required, I think, of them right now. I mean, riding a 450, riding the speeds they are. Things are,
those little injuries seem to happen more often than they used to.
But having your own masseuse, having your own chiropractor, having a Doc G, having a Corey Wharf, having a guy there that can help you out is more like status quo these days, especially for the top guys.
Yeah.
So, looks like, what did the text say on that for Craig? Is that happened today?
Let me tell you.
Man, swollen ankle like that is not good.
Yeah.
The text says, Houston, we have a problem. Funny guy, Christian.
Good point.
Landed on my ankle weird yesterday. Didn't even crash, but ended up with a sprain. Luckily, it's not worse. Don't worry, we are still going racing. Just might have a pimp limp. Could try to hide it from you guys, but nah. Thanks to Dr. G for the help.
Keyword, rice.
Rice, huh?
Rest, ice, compression, elevation.
I'm thinking like a cell phone, like you're going to stick that thing in a bag of rice. Some random Zulu.
That's exactly
I was thinking some Zulu medicine was coming out.
Stick your foot in a bag of rice?
It'll suck the swelling out. It'll take the moisture out, just like in your iPhone.
Yeah.
No.
So much I know.
That was always what I remembered with ankle and knee injuries.
Rest, ice, elevate.
No, rice.
No. Rest, ice, compression, elevation. Yeah.
Woo!
See, we're still learning.
Nice. Nice.
In case we want to go twist.
There's my little Zulu woo, coming out there. It's not that crazy.
There you go.
It's not a witch doctor stuff.
I'm going to throw some high-speed rounds at you guys right now, and these are, we'll call them rockers and walkers. Who rocked and who walked, okay? So try to hit me with the answer as soon as you hear the name, so read. Oh, come on. You guys don't get the high-speed thing here at all, do you?
It's so tough. It's so tough.
So
I'm going to go with
Be honest.
Are we only allowed the one answer, right?
Yep.
Rock or walk?
It's like yes or no. I'd have to say walked.
He got some improvement. He walked.
Wilson.
Walked.
Seeley.
Walked.
For what I was expecting.
Here come the excuses.
I keep wanting,
it's rock or walk.
I keep wanting him to pop out of his shell and just bust one out, but he walked, I think, for Anaheim.
Martin
rode 450, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of
this is the
mid-pack or what?
Yeah. Walked.
What were
He's
we
a national champion.
What were we supposed to expect? Though?
You're a single, but as a single-digit number, you want to finish in the single digits.
Right, but he's a 250 rider still, right? So he's riding 250 each.
And he's an outdoor guy.
Yeah, well,
he finished 11th.
This is a really hard one, but
I think he rocked.
It's not that hard.
I think he rocked. I was waiting to see him ride because last year when he led all those laps at Daytona, and everyone's like, "Oh, Martin's so badass at Supercross." Like, I'm like, no, that's not that wasn't Supercross. So I think 10th or 11th is what's to be expected. I think he did good. I think he rocked.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think with his credentials, he walked.
He better get a 2-digit number according to this guy.
What about our boy Hanny, Josh Hansen?
I didn't actually
sound like he walked, but
I didn't see a whole lot of Hanny.
He didn't.
Yeah,
race.
no, he didn't.
So he walked.
Oh, that's fine.
But apparently he cruised over and spent some time doing a little outreach to that homeless camp that's over there, which is pretty rad for Hanny to step up and do some stuff like that.
So you guys watching at Anaheim, the stadium's here, and then the pits are kind of all around here, and then they have it's called the Santa Ana River is what they call it, which is basically a huge drainage ditch. And any of you guys who watched the TV show Chips when you were a young kid, you'd see the motorcycles riding
Jeremy's
down
dropping knowledge
and all that. That's for all of us old guys. Favorite show, by the way, when I was a kid. They have this homeless setup between like Catella and Orangewood. It's like a half a mile or a mile long, and I would base it to be like sort of like the favela of Brazil, where they have off the side of the road, they got like these crazy cities built, which is plywood, tarps, metal. I mean, the cops. It's so gnarly.
It's like Brazilian word for ghetto.
Yeah, it's so gnarly the cops won't even go in there. Anyway, they have this at in Anaheim, and this is what Dan's referring to is why. So tell me this: if Hansen didn't race and he did an outreach program with the homeless over here passing out donuts.
I don't know what he passed out. We should look it up.
Well, shouldn't he be like he was probably going to Anaheim to race? What was he doing over there?
Well, I think he's going to race, and I really don't know why he didn't.
I guess Hanny's kind of been on his own program for the last couple of years and his own plan,
well,
so he can do whatever he wants. It's just a little strange.
Why didn't he race? Does anyone know?
I don't know. Not sure, but maybe we can find out. Maybe Dan's going to be able to look it up.
I thought he had his team because Bisceglie is his teammate, right? Or am I wrong? Because now I feel like
they're riding Cowies, right?
No, Suzuki's, right? Yeah, Suzuki's.
Suzuki's? Oh, okay. Shows you how much I know.
Bisceglia's his teammate.
Yeah. On Suzuki's.
On Suzuki's.
And I thought they were all pumped to race, and Bisceglie was out there.
Did he go pass out donuts too?
I don't know.
Let me see here.
I don't know.
I'm going to tell you right now.
That's a good question. You guys know? Anyone know at home?
Can someone message us if they know why? Or if Hanny, if you're listening.
He sandwiches. He brought A1 sandwiches to the homeless encampment.
Oh, you say A1 sandwiches?
A1 sandwiches.
What's on an A1 sandwich?
A1 sauce.
Oh, okay.
Duh. No, but hey,
I would ask the same question. I would ask the same question.
I saw Hanny in the pits, and he was in a good mood, and so I don't know what the deal is with him not being on the bike. Let's find out. But all right, but I'm pretty pumped.
It sucks that he was off the bike.
I'm pretty pumped on that.
But if you got some spare time, I'm glad he did something cool.
And if you're not going to be racing, and you know that, I'm kind of confused why he wasn't racing. Maybe he's hurt. I don't know, but.
Maybe
that is pretty cool.
Maybe they had sandwiches left over from the hospitality, so instead of letting it go to waste, they put it to good use.
Maybe that's the case. Maybe he just saw it and was like, you know what? I'm not going to.
I'm going to do a good deed.
That's cool.
Yeah, you can't be mad at that.
No. What else?
All right, so Cooper Webb.
Here, I have a question.
Hold on, Cooper Webb.
Oh.
Rocker or Walker?
You can't ask questions in the middle of being yelled at.
Yeah.
No, because this is a speed
What
round.
is it, rocker or walker?
Oh, yeah.
Rocker
Did he rock or walk?
I would say for Cooper, number 2, franchise Yamaha guy, just barely cracking, 10th? I think he got, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll tell you in a second here.
I would still say he walked.
He got 10th, yeah.
He still walked. He's better than that.
Geronimo?
I don't know. I still don't see him as that great of a Supercross rider, unfortunately. I mean, I'm a fan of Cooper Webb. I don't know why he can't. It seems like get it together to me. we saw some craziness out of him. We saw the whip on Roxon. We saw the
Let's definitely dissect that a little bit.
We saw him hop out of they showed it on TV. He was going inside in turn 1, and Roxon was coming up, and they could use that outside line and then roll and then do 3-3. Webb was on the inside. Roxon went to the outside, and he just abandoned ship on the inside and went straight for his front wheel on the outside. So we did see some Cooper Webb stuff that we've seen in the past. But I think some of those moves that he made were detrimental to his result, really. I mean, he probably shouldn't be 10th. He's looking for better than that. But, again, I just think maybe 10th is about where he's at. I know that he's got to be pissed that Barsha, worked him, in my mind. But I don't know.
So what? He
did I walk or rock? Did he walk or rock? Was I seeing something?
Did he live up to his potential?
Was I seeing something? Was he in? He was up front in the middle.
If he rocked,
it
means
right?
that's the best you think he's capable of.
No, he walked.
He walked. Okay. Yeah. And so it's not a dog to say that someone walked. It's like, hey, I think you're better than that.
On a different weekend, I think you could flip him and Barsha, 3rd and 10th. That's why I said he walked. I think Cooper Webb can and should be doing better.
Baggett.
He walked. He's been getting better.
I had him in my top 4 last week.
Yeah. I thought he would have, if I was to predict a position for him, I was maybe going to throw 4th or 5th for Anaheim 1.
Right. I mean, he rode so well. We talked about it last week. He rode so well last year.
He looked
and
mediocre.
To come out and finish, what did he get? 10th?
12th.
12th?
He looked mediocre as well. He didn't look. Yeah. For him, he's better than that. He walked that one.
Walked for sure.
Tomac.
Well, he walked.
He walked for sure.
Would you say crawled?
We of course we saw some brilliance, but I was really happy with the start.
But it comes back to at this point of time, you can get rid of the I look good, felt good, but what happened? He got 22nd, and at this level, Tomac cannot afford that stuff.
It goes back to that old saying.
It's harsh.
It's what's on paper that counts.
Yeah.
So I don't
Numbers
know.
don't lie.
The results
got
at
1
the
point.
end, the paper at the end don't say Tomac led 7 laps, wadded it up, crashed, finished 22nd. He looked good, though. It doesn't say that. It says Tomac 20th or whatever he got.
Or Tomac has a neat handwriting. No one cares in the sport of motocross and Supercross.
Tomac's pants were down.
Yeah, there will be no
his
justification.
Bike ripped his pants off.
Hey, be careful what you say now. If you say his pants are down, he might be charged with sexual harassment here in the next week.
Yeah, we don't want to get him in trouble.
That
but
down.
That was the unfortunate part.
Yeah.
The internet's been like a buzz of all these rumors about Webb and Roxon battling over a little bit of battle over some ex-girlfriend dispute. I don't want to turn this into a TMZ conversation, but we saw some extraordinary behavior out of Webb that I think had a lot of people scratching their heads, and that's why this internet's kind of been alive with this. It's been all over our feed here today also.
Where did you hear all that?
I don't know if we want to talk about that, but I mean, has there ever been times during your two's racing career where racers were battling over girls? That was not a setup, I swear.
Wow.
I was about to say, I'll let Jeremy take this one. I'm just going to sit back.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Can you grab me a drink? I want to listen to this one.
Yeah. Let's start with Webb and Roxon.
Okay, that's fine.
It seems some of the stuff that went on Saturday night was more than just like your average racing incidents. It seemed kind of personal. The whip with
like
the
a
look
sword
over.
fight.
I don't know.
Excuse the pun.
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing and who has a beef against who. What I did watch as a fan when Webb put the move on Roxon and stuffed him and almost took him out, I was like, oh man, if I was in Roxon's shoes, which he was faster, and I've been in this position, and we'll get to there in a minute.
And you're trying to keep it calm.
I would can't wait till I get back to that guy because I'm going to knock him into next week, right? Well, unfortunately, when Roxon got back to him, Webb fell over, so then they didn't get to really have that little sword fight that you were mentioning.
But at this point, I think Roxon's got a little mental storage there right now.
Right. So
if someone does something like that to you, I know when I race, I for sure was like, I'm going to get that guy no matter what. One way, shape, or form, I'm going after him. His day will come.
His day will come. Well,
so that has him
sooner
forgot.
than later.
I don't think so. I don't think you can forget that.
No.
And especially
we're going to see that, I think, all year long.
Which could be fun as a fan.
I don't
Right.
know the ex or the girlfriends or the situation. I think I know who may be involved.
So let me tell you what's going to happen. If we continue to see that, and we know Ken Roczen on the track's a pretty nice guy, right? He's not looking to smash anybody. Where Cooper Webb, we know some of his antics have been a little bit controversial over the last 3-4 years, right? He's not afraid to throw a move on guys.
I love that about him.
Well, a lot of people love that about him, and that means he's a tough, hard racer. However, if Roczen's fighting for the championship, he's going to have to look out for a guy like that. So if Webb is going to pull that kind of stuff every week, week in, week out, Roczen's going to have to drop the Mr. Nice Guy and throw one big, hard move on the guy and knock
Shut
him
the
into
door on
next
the whole
week
thing.
to make sure that he knows that the next week when they come along, he can't be pushing him around like that. So Roczen didn't, unfortunately, get the chance to maybe return the favor this past weekend.
Because I think a lot of the crowd at that point were anticipating what's the
Right.
reaction.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
And I mean, I'm here to tell you that, look, if you can pass one of your guys that doesn't like you and just pass him and smoke him and embarrass him, that's what you want to do. I used to like to do that more than just ram guys because we had guys in the sport that would want to stuff you, take you out, do all this stuff. If you could just pass a guy and pull the paint off his frame when you go by and embarrass him because he looks so slow, then that's what you want to do. And I think Roczen probably had that mindset last week. But if Webb keeps up with the crowd,
you're a better man. My problem is I couldn't help it. I stared at the paint on his frame when I aimed for it. So
Right.
that was I think maybe. And you know what? That's a good page out of your book. And I think what it was too is you were good and on top for so long that there was a target on your back. You didn't need to add salt to the injuries.
Well, that's the thing.
So you wanted, if you could pass someone and take the high road, I respected that about you and your career, and I think that was smart. And it comes back to, if you're Cooper Webb too, riding aggressive is all good and dandy and makes you who you are until the day when he's trying to win a championship and now you don't have a ton of allies.
Right,
And you got a
exactly.
bunch of enemies.
And
That's when it can really hurt you at the worst time.
And that's exactly what I've always said about Barsha. We know Barsha's a fast rider, but why is he doing all the dumb stuff on the track, making enemies? So we can sit back and look at my career and go, man, that was really smart because we're sitting here now. I can tell you there's a ton of times when I wanted to just smash Ezra Lusk. I mean, in fact, we almost got in a fight a few times. Emmett and I almost got in fact, we got in a fight one time. I mean, you guys know it's pretty famous. Emmett and I had problems a lot of times. I always had a problem with the way he rode on the track. His etiquette was not good. Larocco's etiquette was not very good at times. These guys have no problem. They have no problems chopping you off in a corner, or even worse, chopping you off on the face of a triple, and those kind of things. I would never want to hurt anybody. And I think those kind of things hurt people. And we need all 20 guys out there as many times as we can, so we have the greatest show that we can have. That's why we have Supercross. Do I think that Roczen...
It's got to be give and take a little bit.
I agree with you from a performance standpoint, but, man, we need to hear about some of these battles and know that these guys aren't just all chummy because
at the end of the day,
and it gets hidden from us.
Yeah, but that's from the media side. The media side wants to see guys like fighting, and when we were racing, we had a lot of friends. Yeah, there was a few dicks out there that I didn't like and didn't have the best etiquette. I didn't like some of that sometimes, but you know what? Like you said, you need allies. In order to win championships, you need allies. You need a guy like Roczen someday to go, man, Webb's not that bad. I'm not going to stuff him today. I'm not going
to ruin his championship.
Yeah, I'm not going to ruin his championship. Yeah. Well, guess what? That's gone because the minute Roczen's behind Webb and Webb's going to do good, Roczen's going to take him out. Just like everyone hates Barsha on the track. So I agree we need enemies. For the fans' sake of it, you need the bad guy, bad guy, good cop, bad cop, whatever. But at the end of the day, when you're racing, you need friends on the track, and
you need to be smart about it.
You're not doing yourself a favor when you're pulling.
You almost have to be a bit of a politician at times, which is just try and get all parties to come together, which means don't create where you're the bad guy in the room. And so for Webb, he's ridden that way in the past, which is aggressive, and I think he feeds off that when there's that hostility a little bit. But when it comes back to it now is, all right, if you're going to ride like that, you got to also back it up. If you're going to throw it out there like I'm here to battle, like battle
That-
when you get left behind. So for Webb, he's still got to figure out, to me, the transition from 250 to 450 has been tougher than other guys. And there are some guys that I think when they move up, you can almost tell they may not make their transition well. I thought Cooper would have done better than he has. So now I think it's coming down to a little bit of the mental, and that might be also mental frustration, just taking it out on something.
Here's the thing. Next time Cooper Webb does that to Roxon, he better take him down, because Roxon embarrassed him. Passed him, caught up, passed him, embarrassed him, and smoked him.
Yeah. So the lookovers.
If you're gonna act like that, you have to expect to be ridden against like that, right?
So who wins there? The mean lookover, the whipped out lookover that
I think it's pretty
on the
simple
triple
who won
that
battle.
Coop did, or the stuff, or the pass and then the pass again. that
I think,
Roxon
like
did.
Grant said, if you're gonna act like that, you better back that up.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He definitely didn't back it up.
Well, look at the results. Would you rather finish 4th or 10th?
Yeah.
That's a simple question.
And they were together during the race.
Yeah, one had a
So,
pass,
yeah. I don't know.
Drama.
I think
drama.
Cooper, Cooper. I'm not sure whether it's one of his hang-ups where he's trying to get respect from these guys. I think they all respect him. We all respect him as a racer. He's a hard racer. He's won titles already. I mean, he's fast. He doesn't need.
I know
someone,
a good way to
he
get
doesn't
respect.
need someone's okay. He needs to go out and win races.
Come out as a rookie and win a bunch of races and the championship, right?
All right. That's how you do it.
And then all of a sudden everyone goes, "Oh my God, this guy!"
Yeah. Well, catch everyone off guard.
Yeah.
He's had enough time to be used to the bike, and his transition, like you said, has not gone probably the way he wanted to. But you know what? He's hopefully, like we talked about earlier, if you're going to ride up front, you're going to get used to that pace. You're going to see what other guys are doing. But in my mind, you can't just go trying to wreck everyone. The move I saw in turn 1 where he went on the inside and then just totally jumped out of his line to go out and hit Roxon, how do you race like that? I don't understand. That's not good for you. It's not good for him. We're racing forward. We're racing forward. We're not racing with mirrors.
You're potentially jeopardizing both your races by going off target to go and
right. And then when it doesn't work out, you look dumb. So, I mean,
I don't remember the first turn exactly, but I think I know what you're saying. He ran it out wide, but
he was going inside. Roxon was going to go to the outside and minding his own business. And then Cooper Webb saw him and just said, I'm over this inside thing and going straight for his wheel. So, look, when the opportunity presents itself, you can do it. But doing stuff like that, that's like what Barsha does. And it's just not cool.
There's a time and place. If it's last lap, main event, I agree there's certain moves you may make on someone that would be borderline over the top or aggressive. But you wouldn't do that on the first lap of a heat race.
So somebody post on here GL Mike Brown.
Right, but wouldn't you agree the wild antics where you fly out of your line going for somebody is different than, hey, we're racing tight, and if the opportunity presents itself in a corner,
yeah, exactly.
You maybe go ahead and take it. If you got a payback coming or whatever, but you just don't go out of your way and you lose seconds on the track just to make crazy moves.
Dan just threw out Mike Brown, and I actually did.
And your blood pressure just spiked?
No. I
see you guys.
I did. If the fan's referring to what we're talking about, I did in 01 at Binghamton. Brown ran the outside. They had that lower section, was a bit of a supercrossy section, but on a 125 to go over the step down and the single, the rut was so gnarly, you had to go wide and go for it. And Brown went wide, and I went out in the rut, and it was one of those last lap moves, and I launched out of the rut and just T-boned him. I won.
Okay, well there you go.
It was a last lap,
and
it was the penultimate round. The championship was literally like that.
On the line.
6-point swing was huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Had you not made that move, would you won?
Well, it was 01. My wheel broke, so I lost it anyway. But you know what? It made me
who
feel
would've
better.
thought?
It made me feel better about the takeout move afterwards. You know what I mean?
Right.
All right, so we've talked a lot about what happened at the last round. I want to remind you guys you're watching the Action Sports Show, powered by Toyota Escondido, right here at Jeremy McGrath's house. We're in his beautiful man cave trophy room area, and it's really
off
cool.
To the Attain Media guys.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So
Making
big
it
hats
happen
off to
over
the
here.
Attain Media guys. Check them out; they do an awesome job. They're giving us this beautiful feed,
right?
And on
Finally,
your page and Transworld's page.
We got a pro set up here.
Finally.
Yeah.
Finally got Jeremy to pay his internet bill.
No,
Right,
what it
exactly.
was he just added on, so we got some extra megabytes, so we could actually
That's
use
what
it.
he did. He gave us some megabytes. People are commenting on your place, and they absolutely love it. And so we'll do this
Thank you,
some more
guys.
here and show you guys some of the cool things that are here. One of the cool things is this jersey, and we've threatened to give it away if we get a really cool comment. But honestly, I haven't seen you guys throw good enough comments yet. So throw some questions at us, because I'd like to get into a Q&A session with the audience right now, so we can answer some of your
let's do
guys'
it.
questions.
Talk to you guys.
The questions that are coming in live on Facebook. So
What did you guys observe out there that we didn't? I mean, we
There's
thought
always
we
something.
thought we were paying attention. Hey, I have a question. I was going to ask it earlier.
Yes, you were.
What do you think? What do you guys think? And you can comment
How's
on this.
this question?
What do you think about the format change with no semis? Now we do the heat races qualifying to the main. What's your opinion about that?
I think from a fan standpoint, sometimes when you get in the stands, and this is just my opinion from trying to ask people that are just more there just to watch a good show, the problem with the semis is I feel like it's almost like a last chance because they've taken out the top 4 of each heat. So it's pretty much the best of the rest, which means it's not bad, but most of your superstars have gone through. If they haven't, they're going to be in the LCQ anyway. So with semis, I think it's almost like in no man's land a little bit where the heats are good and the LCQ is good because it's getting in and last chance to get in. I don't know. I just felt like with the semis, it was a longer evening. I don't know if you go and look.
Did they shorten the time? Not having the semis allow the show to be a little shorter.
Yeah.
Probably,
and you know what?
less laps on the track, less track abuse.
And then let's be honest, with the way things are going nowadays, like they say, a lot of the fans are millennials, and a lot of them don't
Can't
have the
pay
patience or they can't pay attention long enough to watch a 4-hour show. So maybe it's better that it's 3 or hours.
I mean, that is the question. Are they seeing less racing because of it?
I don't think so. I mean, to me, you want to watch quality racing. That's like saying, I'm here to race or I'm here to circulate, and I think that's what we were talking about with Chad a little bit earlier. He came.
Ouch.
I'm
just making
he
it
came
bad.
there with the intent
get
to
you.
circulate.
That's the wife,
I mean, let's be honest, he did. So it comes back to with the semis, you're watching the best of the rest. I felt like a lot of people were getting hot dogs and beers anyway at that point in time. So,
All right, so I got a question for you. This is from a guy named Jay De Silva, and this is coming off the Transworld Facebook page. How many riders win championships after 0 points at A1? Now, we don't have the stats probably to nail that perfectly, but we can get to your question a little bit.
I think I don't know about 0 points because most of what I've ever watched, especially in the 450 or it used to be 250, even for 20th, which was last, you got a point. I remember Carmichael got last in 2003.
And
if I'm
still
not
came
mistaken.
back.
Remember he crashed at Anaheim 1 and got 20th and came back. So he was 24 points down. They got a new point system.
I think
now
0
as
or
well.
1 is not the point. He's just saying.
Who came from last
Yeah.
to first? It would have been Carmichael, unless I'm missing.
So it has been
would-
done
he
in
would be
modern
one. Yeah,
history.
he would be one. I think that he.
I think it was Ricky
that
in
would
03.
be capable of it. We almost saw it last year with Tomac
Yeah.
when he had a bunch of. He had 2 DNFs in particular, right? One with the brake. Something happened to the brake, and he had to pull in the pits, and then.
Yep.
But let's just say this: I think that it's entirely possible.
Did
I think
Stewart?
it's probably better that it happened at round 1 than maybe round 10 when the championship is kind of maybe more on
Well,
the
like
line.
you said, it kind of changes the mindset a little bit, which is don't worry about the points.
All right,
Just go
worry
ride
about
like
winning
Eli.
races. Yeah,
And then eventually all of a sudden it's like, hey.
we're back in the points league.
Huh.
Well, hopefully as fans we're going to get to see him gain all those points back, and then at the end figure out how it is
Five
when he
rider
has,
battle
when
at
he has to
Vegas.
deal with it at Vegas or whatever. So
Question from a guy named Dale Dye on the same Transworld Facebook page. Marvin can always learn to skim whoops. Does McGrath think Muscan? I always do that to you. Sorry,
Muscan.
bud. But you do heel clickers, so I have no sympathy for you. Jumping through the whoops will be a reason
that's a low
Muscan won't win the championship versus someone that does skim them most of the time. Is that going to cost him the championship when it's all said and done?
I think it's proven to not cost him anything. I think for me, I don't think I would jump through the whoops, to be honest.
It's not really your style.
It's not my style. I take pride in being the best guy out there in the whoops, and I think that was one of my strong points when I raced, no matter how big or small, the whoops were. It's a little strange to me. It's I think it might be a French thing, because Vuillemin did the same thing.
He was like the originator.
And some of you guys don't know this, but when we race the races in Europe in off-season, Bercy, which is a race in France, or some of these other races,
they would break down a lot.
They make these whoops that are, the insides are really smooth. They walk them or pack them. They roll them with this roller.
Steamrollers.
So where this is all coming from is some of his experiences over there. They can jump because they can land in between the whoops and keep jumping. When we grew up here racing, the whoops were like
they're like shark's teeth.
The troughs in the bottom are like this. So if you
V's.
slow down and try to jump them, I mean, you might be able to do it from lap 15 to 20 in the final, maybe in the main line. But for the most part, you had to blitz the whoops. And
well, that's because I remember when I came here, I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, they're a little bit different here.
Yeah.
You don't get a chance. It's pretty much, you couldn't ride through them. Because I remember a couple of times coming up, I'll just ride through and I'll see it. And it's like,
yeah.
Then you'd pull out because you almost fell over and you're like, you can't. You had to commit. And that's why I said when I got to Anaheim, they would build a pad and they would go and drop the the bucket and then flip the dirt over. So like you said, it was like this and then a face. So you couldn't. So the European, the way they do it, you can go, say, triple.
Yeah, exactly.
But the whoops in America, it was pretty much you had to have that good skimming technique. And I realized when I came here, I didn't really have it.
And
I could wheel tap or hop.
So we think that's an international issue.
Well, no, I think it's an international experience. So that's the way they grew up. And now they're making the whoops, so they can ride in between them.
Well, I also thought for Anaheim, the whoops weren't as big as we've seen in years gone by.
I can tell you this. That is an energy saver.
Yeah.
So if you can do that smooth, which he does, and a lot of times with the way the format is with 20 laps or 20 minutes now, right? So we're not only into 20 laps, we're into like 25 laps sometimes. Yeah. So that with the track breaking down more, you can do that, and it saves a ton of energy because you go like 1, 2, 3, you're out. It's 3 little hops. And blitzing the whoops all night with 25 laps, there's few guys that can do that for that amount of time.
I just think a lot of it comes down to how they build the whoops. If they're old school, big American-style whoops, which I got used to after a while, the hopping technique is not going to be the best way.
Right.
You've got to be a good skimmer.
So
if they build the whoops where, like at Anaheim, you could hop through the whoops.
Right.
You really could.
And
so if
typically,
they keep doing that, then it's not going to hurt them.
Well, and then typically at, say some track where it's going to be rainy or it's going to be ruddy and soft, that's really the only way you can do
Eventually,
it. You kind of have to wheelie through it and stay in the groove and all that. So I think it's a skill that is going to work well for him.
That can help at times, yeah.
So to answer the question, is it going to prevent him ultimately from winning a championship?
No. I just said it based on how they build the whoops. If they build big, gnarly whoops, I think it's going to hurt him. If they don't, if it's like Anaheim we just saw, he's going to get away with it just fine.
I think he's capable of nailing the whoops like that, too. I think he's just doing it his way. And as they say, there's many ways.
He's doing it the way he wants to do it.
There's many ways to skin a cat. So,
a cat? You know what I mean? What?
Oh, sorry.
Next question. Okay.
It's a hobby of his.
It's just,
no, I'm kidding.
It's a saying.
Easy, too.
It's a saying. Okay, so this is an interesting question. This should have been maybe one of our rock and walk guys.
Right.
It's from a guy named Ryan Newhart. And his question is, what do you think about Brock Tickle still being 8th place on a factory Red Bull KTM? He's on, obviously, what we know to be a cream of the crop bike.
Which is fine because at the end of the day, you can go look at Cooper Webb's the franchise of Yamaha, and he didn't, do fantastic either.
That's true.
You could go and say, okay, at the end of the day, Brock Tickle is theoretically the number 2 guy on the team.
Sorry, guys.
So with that said, top 8, first race on the team, new team, everything like that. I don't think it was bad, but I don't think it was amazing either. I think Brock's a journeyman kind of guy, and he's the kind of guy, if he starts 8th now, he seems like the guy, he'll have maybe a couple bad races in between, but eventually he'll be like 7th, 6th, 5th.
Right.
And he'll be around there, and I think that's sort of probably what KTM hired him to do. I don't think they have massive expectations. I'm sure they would love to see him on the podium, and I think Tickle is someone with a good start on his night, can and will be on the podium. But I don't think 8th place was that bad. I really don't.
No, I don't think so
I
either.
would have said he rocked. I think he
rock
did
too.
just enough.
And related to building blocks, I think it's something he can work with. He can go back and go,
There was a lot of depth and a lot of guys that had better
And again-
nights or worse nights, but I
and-
still think that wasn't a bad result.
And again, related to the pressure thing, he was out there with a new bike, new team. He's finally got a factory ride, which he's been working on for a long, long time. And I mean, I think you're right. I think it was a good race.
It was a decent foundation.
Rocked, for sure.
It was a very light rocked, but I think no. How about this? It wasn't rocked. It was brocked.
It was brocked.
Okay,
He brocked
he
it.
barely
He
rocked
brocked
it.
it
That's a
pretty good.
brock.
That's a
brocked
brock.
is barely rocked it. Brocked it.
Okay, he brocked it.
You're solid, dude. You're unstoppable. Okay, a question from a guy named Jeff Lamb, and this question is pointed towards Jeremy. I think the answer to this question is a very loud yes. But it's what do you feel like your BMX experience? How do you feel like it affected you as a racer?
Oh, I think look, you guys know in interviews my whole career and my whole life pretty much, racing life anyway, I've credited BMX to a lot of the skill, especially when I first moved into the class, when I first started racing Supercross. You guys, look, we're talking a while ago. I know that, and I'm not trying to be like the old guy, but at the same time, when I first came into Supercross, guys were still like hitting jumps and trying to jump as high as they can to make the jump.
Yeah.
So for me, I only knew the one way, and that was kind of like
Being
the
efficient.
original style scrub, right? Was to like lay it down sideways and not carve into it like they are now. So I relate. I am so thankful that I had those years in racing BMX and knowing how to ride a bicycle, because I think that when I first came to Supercross, that was the advantage I had over everybody. Think about it. It was Stanton and Bale and Bradshaw and a lot of these
There was a lot of
these
great
guys
riders.
that we all love so much, but they were all jumping so high. So I had a huge advantage when I came in there like that.
So it was really in a lot of the jumping, the staying low, and the staying to the ground.
Well, that
technique.
I always say
I could
Yeah.
see that. I mean, if you just go watch BMXs, they're very efficient of getting from what I call, for lack of better terms, point A to point B, which is from the lip to the landing.
Yeah, you nailed it.
You don't want to go up. You want to go forward and down and catch a top and drive down. And
Right.
Jeremy was always good at that. And you know what's funny is
because of that.
I've always been kind of like horrible on the BMX bike. That's how I used to get younger as a kid. So I was told to stay off it.
Right.
And I wonder if it would have helped me more by practicing.
I think it
but-
probably would have. I think so. And you know what? If you watch BMX racing, that's where you see the technique that I was using when I first came in there,
so
where you
much.
want to stay low and you hit this jump with more mile per hour, and that's where I had it figured out. I would hit the jump with a lot more mile per hour than everybody.
Soak it up with
and
your
just
body.
soak it up with my knees and body.
Yeah.
It worked for a while. Now, obviously, the styles changed 2 and 3 times since then, but
which is a good point that you've mentioned.
right. The other thing that I equate to having such a long career was the fact that I didn't start racing until I was 14. So I was racing BMX until I was like 13 and a half, 14. Started racing moto, and that was really what allowed me to race from 14 to like 32 or so.
Yeah.
And
Nowadays,
we
some
see
kids
that-
are getting burnt out
we
at 14.
we see the great. I mean, we see Ricky Carmichael winning national championships, Ryan Dungey winning national championships when they were like 6, 7 years old. I mean, remember all those those great interviews with Ricky when he was such a little pudgy kid, and at him and
Redhead
his dad,
freckles.
Rick and Jeannie and all that stuff. So that, I think, I'm still a firm believer in the way the sport works is you have a certain amount of time. You have a window. So my window was from 14 to, say, 32. Now, Carmichael's window, he stopped at 27, right? That's 5-6 years before I ever stopped. And he started 5-6 years before I started. So that would put him about 6 years old or whatever, right? Same thing with Dungey. So, honestly, when you're trying to be a top athlete in motocross and supercross, by the time your window, you get to that length of time, your body's just worn out.
Yeah.
And you hope that at that point
And
you've
sometimes speed up, too.
right, and you've proven what you needed to prove. I would never say that, as weird as it is to say you started racing at 14, especially nowadays, I don't think it hurt me a bit. I think the stuff I learned on my bicycle was definitely something I could never be enough thankful for.
I like that. And I think timing is really dialed in at a hyper level on a bicycle.
Totally. You don't have suspension.
Room for error.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And
that was another thing.
That was a big part of the culture, actually, in your youth.
Right.
Guys were riding a lot. They were riding BMX. They were in the hills digging, and it was just part of what was happening.
Also reminds me of the opening scene of On Any Sunday.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Was that
the original?
Yeah.
And the kids out there.
Love that. Hey, that's real life right there for me, man. Let's talk about the future. And if you guys want to throw some questions at us about the Groms that are out there racing, the youngsters, I know we talked about a couple cool names. There's some really impressive kids out there, from the Deegans to Styles Robertson. I'm a big fan of his. And there's Reynolds. A lot of them. Jet Reynolds is unbelievable.
Jet Reynolds is going to be amazing, I think.
Ryder's really fast. Have you got to spend any time with the next generation, really?
I have, for sure, especially a few of those guys. Styles, Ryder, and Jet are all Team Green riders. So for me, I've gotten to spend some time with them at the races. Loretta's out doing Cowie Team Green photo shoots and stuff like that. So all of those kids you mentioned are awesome, and they all have big futures. Their families are behind them 100%. They all have great families. So, Jet and Ryder are both like mid-California guys, right? NorCal, Bakersfield guys, and
Styles is a Bakersfield guy as well.
Styles. I mean, it seems like there's
which is funny.
Seems like there's a
Bakersfield's
really
a hot spot right now.
It's like a new movement.
There's a fast
never heard of that
crop of kids. Well, it still happens down south here, right? Because they come down here every weekend and all that. Just geographically, that's where they live right now, and there's a lot of heat coming out of that part of the California. But there's a lot of kids. I mean, what's the other kid name? Matt LeBlanc, I think, is another amateur kid that's super fast.
Yeah.
Marchbanks
is super fast.
The thing is, Green kid. When you always look at the youth and the next generation, there's always kids where you look at going, he could be the next one. And I think sometimes there's several of them.
It rarely works out.
But it just seems between just life, whether it's injuries or family problems, or he lost interest, or maybe the kid was pushed so hard he went off the rails and became a druggie. I don't know. It just seems like
tough stories right now.
But it happens.
It does happen.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
And so when you look at these kids now, the one kid that I felt like I followed his career all the way to this day was Cianciarulo, because from a young age, and I think I mentioned this before on a show a year or two ago, where I saw a DC ad and they had Jeremy and they had Cianciarulo, and they said, you got some big shoes to fill. And I remember thinking, that's a really big comparison, from a hot youngster to the king.
There's a lot of years in there.
There is a massive window to go. That's like going from A to Z without passing B, C, D, E, and
Yeah.
So, and it's not like Cianciarulo said, I'm the man, I'm the king, I'm going to beat McGrath, I've got it all dialed. He was just very good, and people were like, that's the next one.
That could be the next guy.
And I followed him, and I think he's got a good head on his shoulders, but there's just things that happen, like he started growing, meaning growth spurt. Then I think his technique then was a little bit sloppy because of his growth spurt. That's my opinion. And I think he was still trying to go fast. He had some injuries, and things led to other things. And then it was like, here's the kid that had everything to be the greatest that there ever was. And I still believe he's got more to prove. But, at this point, because of the hype and everything, you could argue and say he hasn't fulfilled possibly the shoes that he was expected to at this point. So I think it's very tough with these kids. It's really not to try and overhype them at too young of an age, or put too much pressure. And I think that's maybe what's happening a little bit.
I mean, we're speaking of kids like Jet Reynolds and Ryder DeFrancisco, who are they're 10 and 11
kids.
or what? They're kids.
They're still kids.
They have a lot of time before they get to Supercross.
They've got the basics. They've got
happen.
Natural talent. There's no disputing any of the names you mentioned.
And they're awesome.
It's all about how they're going to blossom and
how they're going to grow up as a kid. I mean,
and hopefully they don't get too much pressure. I think the younger kids are getting more pressure at a younger age,
Right,
in my opinion.
And here's the thing.
So more going to succeed, or
Yeah.
should I say, some will succeed, but I think more will fail if there's more pressure and more scrutiny from a younger age.
With opportunity comes the opportunity to get distracted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that happens. And a lot of times when we see the kids like, oh, man, that's going to be the kid. Or those are going to be the couple kids that are going to be the next, Langston, the next Mcgrath, the next Dungy, Carmichael, whatever. It's oftentimes that some kid will come out of nowhere and we're like, wow, who's that kid?
Because
And that kid's
let's just say that at that age, nobody was saying McGrath is going to be the next guy because you weren't on the radar.
No.
I think that's a really important message.
Yeah, he didn't
You
come out
weren't
with
on the
15
radar.
Loretta titles,
No.
where a lot of these
Right.
kids have that.
And I think Dungy was the same way, right?
He was a
Dungy
lot on the
was
radar.
not on the radar.
He was a little
Even
on-
Villapoto.
And I think
Villapoto was like a Leslie's slap him around kid.
Yeah,
well,
because he was
let's look
beaten
at.
by Lawrence.
When
Yeah.
when Dungy came along, everyone's like Roger DeCoster handpicked Dungy.
Yeah, that was weird. Like everybody was like, "Who? What?"
Where did that come from? But then, how smart did Roger look?
Oh
like
yeah,
going,
he won that one.
Yeah, he won. He made everyone like go, whoa, okay, maybe he is the man, like everyone says. So, Dungy's one of the greatest.
He
ever.
was in the B class when
he picked him up.
When he picked him up, and there was so much hype around other guys at that moment.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Roger did say at one point, and I thought it was a pretty good point, and not even that scientific. But he said, in his experience, and he's been around motocross. Let's say not so much Supercross, but motocross his entire life.
Right.
And he said one thing that I've learned is if a kid has corner speed, that means you can build off of that. Like, it's hard to teach corner speed. Like, they sort of have it or don't. And he said he saw something in Dungy that he believed would have helped him along the road and worked with it. So, like you said,
was he right?
Yeah, I mean, could he do it again? Who knows? Meaning go handpick someone out of the B class. But Dungy made him look good and vice versa. So.
Right. They worked well together.
Yeah, they were like peanut butter and jelly.
Well, I can tell you this. When I went to Loretta's this year, Loretta Lynn's track to me is like one of the gnarliest tracks. It's got ruts, it's got bumps, it's got weather. I mean, it's muddy. And, it's a track that's in my mind is not made for 450s. It's just too small. And then when I saw that kid Cooper ride that track, I was like, wow. It really blew me away. He made it look so easy and just so smooth. I was like, that is incredible. And that track is a tough track. So I was like, thinking, okay, this kid has a bright future right ahead of him, and we're going to see that shortly here for sure.
I think so.
We need to get some great questions so that we can give away this jersey because if you guys don't hit some bangers, I've got a lot of questions, and I'm like hesitating to bring them up because I don't want to talk about why James Stewart isn't out on the track because I don't know and am losing less and less care for why he's not out on the track, frankly. So would I love to see him out there? Yes. Would he probably be doing the same thing that Chad is? Probably. So do I really need to worry about that? I don't know. Am I throwing a lot of smack? Maybe. But
yes, you are throwing a lot of smack.
You got a one-man interview.
We're not even going to comment on that stuff.
But yeah, we've answered that question a dozen times. If he doesn't want to speak, then we don't need to talk about him. I would love for him to speak and share and bring us into this journey a little bit as fans. But that's his prerogative, and I respect his right to do that. And he's kept it close to the vest, and that's his choice.
For all you Stern fans out there, he went Richard Simmons on us.
He went Richard Simmons on us.
He gone.
How's that out? How's that like visual?
He just disappeared.
Yeah,
gone.
I was just picturing him in Richard Simmons shorts.
That'd be a
with
sight.
makeup.
That'd be a sight.
It's just strange because to me, James was someone that worked the social media and his fans very well.
Yeah.
Like someone like Chad, I think, has always been good at that.
Right.
And it was just strange to see someone that put effort into doing whip videos and compilations and all these cool things and kept his fans so in tune, and then just like overnight it was just
lopped it off.
It's like someone pulled the plug.
Yeah.
And
Good night, Irene, huh?
So it just left everyone wondering, and maybe he's working on something. Maybe it's part of his PR, which is just to come out and blow everyone's mind away about
dude,
something.
Come on, it's past that point.
That's what I think. I think
past
it's now
the
at
A
that
lot of
point
people are
now.
holding on to that dream for a while.
And
but
I
don't
thought
know.
for a while, there might be something brewing, and it's going to, maybe shock everyone. But now it's kind of like, is he just sitting at home?
What was the last time when he came back and raced and then crashed at Anaheim and was out again? Right? Was that the last time we've really seen him?
I was about to say which time though.
Well, no.
Oh, the last time.
The latest.
Because I know
time,
he's crashed a few times at Anaheim.
Well, no. Remember, he came back. I think it was round one. Then he got on the first lap. He ran into. Was it Dungy? I think he might have hit Dungy. And then,
that's right.
yes.
I was really bummed about that.
Yes. Was that
Right.
Because I
years
felt like
ago
he
now?
needed some momentum, and that just cut his legs out.
That
from
was a
under him.
race that he needed to just get through and get some building blocks going, and then it all we all wanted to see him do well, and it all went to hell in a handbasket in about 10 seconds, and then we never saw him again. So
Kind of seems like,
But
I mean, for someone
weird.
that had so much success and such a
what
big
is he?
following.
He's won 50 Supercrosses.
Isn't he second behind you?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I feel like your record's safe.
But what's crazy is think about that.
He won't get it. That's good. I was worried for a while.
50 wins, 2 titles, and you
Yeah.
have 72, 7 titles. Talk
That-
about keeping together for a while.
Right. That's talking
James,
about winning. That's win or crash, and
Yeah.
and he had to crash a lot. So
My buddy calls him the cow. Crash or win.
crash or win.
You got the goat.
That's a little bit
You know.
like Bradshaw. He did the same thing. He was winning a lot, but crashing a lot.
It's like a bunch of farm animals out there. What's Reedy? He's a kangaroo. He's a skippy. So you got the goat, the kangaroo, the cow.
The warrior, the king.
I just go and poach them.
The Zulu.
Get my spear. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
All right, we got some more time, so we'll get some more questions. But while people are drumming up some good questions, I want to jump into some round 2 predictions from the fellas here. So we know what we got out of round 1. I'll break down the top 5 for you in the lights class or 250 class. Mcgrath, Plessinger, Cincerillo, Savacci, and Craig. That's your top 5 from lights. Give me a top 3 for next week.
I did get a text from Randy Meninga, who builds the tracks for Dirt Works and stuff, and he did say that the Houston dirt is coming in super, super wet. So I would expect that the race this weekend is going to be ruddy. So exact opposites of the conditions we had in Anaheim 1. So
That's some insider info right there.
Maybe this is where Justin Hill is going to – some of
Shine.
the testing is going to come into play.
I think Aaron Plessinger.
Plessinger, we know Plessinger
He's
can
good
ride
in the
ruts.
ruts,
That guy
yeah.
can ride ruts. So, I mean, with that being said –
Well, you asked what's going to happen this weekend.
Yeah,
He
what do
gave
you
us a
think?
good little tidbit.
Yep, you gave us some
I'm going to
insight.
bounce off the 2 of that and go, I think with
Top
that,
3.
Plessinger is going to win it.
Top 3. AP,
you're going
AC,
AC,
Mcgrath.
and Mcgrath. Okay.
Basically almost a flip of the podium.
Just a rearrangement.
Almost, yeah.
I think
well,
that happens.
I said Plessinger was going to win last week. Yeah, I don't know. I think Cincerello was 3rd last week, right? So I think that we have to give him I think
AP, AC, MC. Mcgrath. He's another MC.
Yeah.
It seems you're going with all the initials.
Right. Yeah, I think McElrath. How's he riding ruts? I don't know.
He's a Carolina boy, so I think he will still do well in
Very
those
well.
conditions. I just think what we've seen with AP, when the
He's
nastier
ready,
the
huh?
track
He's
gets
ready.
goes,
Yeah.
he's always done well, like Atlanta or those kind of the more
so
ruddy
let's
races.
put Plessinger, I think, for the win. I'm going to go with I don't know. I'm going to go with maybe Cincerello 2nd, Josh Hill 3rd, McElrath.
You mean
I'll
Justin?
Go. Huh?
Justin.
Or Justin Hill. Justin Hill.
One of them hills.
Josh Hill.
One of the
Justin
hillbillies.
The number 1 rider, the kid.
Not 75.
McElrath, I'm going to say, is going to ride well, but I'm going to put him 4th this week, which is still okay. I think he'll be fine.
I think
mean,
Hill might
honestly,
be
I
4th
think
because
he could come out and win, but I'm going to just to mix it up a little bit.
I'm going to put it Hill, Plessinger, Mcgrath.
Hill. To me, I want to see. I mean,
It's good.
I like Justin a lot, and I'd like to see him on the podium. But from Anaheim 1, I think if he makes a step forward, he's probably like a fourth-place guy, roughly.
I think that's reasonable.
And if he can do that, then I think he's going to be a podium guy moving forward.
I'm just putting some real credence. Like, this is the champ. He is a podium guy. He is the guy. So
he's got to bounce back.
Yeah, so I'm just putting some credence into this concept that the East Coast kind of rutted him up a little bit.
Even if things aren't that great, he needs to will himself into a podium if he can this weekend.
He definitely does.
Yeah.
Just remind everyone, boom, number 1, we're back.
The champ is here. Okay, let's talk Four Filthies.
Four Filthies?
We didn't talk about Savachi, but I think he'll be up there too. But it's hard. He got 4th last week. He rode good. He rode really good in the heat.
Savachi,
so
from what I've seen,
it's going to take a good start. It's going to take a good start.
From following his pro career, Savachi seems a little hot and cold, like some riders can be.
Definitely.
And I think if he gets he's one of those guys. He seems if he gets a good start in the main event or in the outdoors, straight off the bat he runs at good pace and he's a threat.
Well, here's what we can say also. Since the dirt will be a little bit more like an East Coast round.
He's a Georgia boy, it might help.
And he rode really well last year in some of those conditions, so maybe that's a spark that he needs to get up there. So, anyways, needless to say,
you could argue there's 6-7 guys
that
could squeeze on that podium. It's just about who puts it together.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, just for the record, Doug Parsons is picking Dungey. Good pick, Doug.
Cool.
You should enter a
just
fantasy
a shout out
league,
for
bro.
you, my man. That's all. That's all. Someone did post on here that Mike Mason. I don't know if this is Mike, but someone named Mike Mason put on here that in an earlier career interview, Stewie had said, "When I leave MX, you won't see me again." So I don't know if he's quoted by that. Maybe that's what we're experiencing.
He might be true to his
I
word.
wish he'd
then.
tell us. That's what's happening.
You know what? If that is true, it's
Instead of holding on to your number.
It's so weird to me. Like, it's just not even in my playbook to think that I would ever want to do something and
abandon this sport.
Abandon the sport that's given me so much opportunity. Like, I don't. It's so weird to me to even think that someone would even say that. When I'm done, I'm out of here. You'll never see me again. Like, these are my friends. This is my family. Why would I ever say that? You know what I mean? It's just weird.
That's not the Mike.
You know what the
Mason
thing is with James is James never been he's been good at, like I said, working with his social media to keep the fans going. But James, to me, was not a guy that could walk in a room with fans.
He's not a people's person.
Slap hands and high five and hug and laugh and joke. James has always been a more quiet, secluded guy. And I think while he was winning, he did his job and kind of knew work the crowd, work everyone, because they're the ones that are essentially paying the bills.
Yeah. Right.
So he was good at that. And I just think he's the kind of guy that he prefers to be secluded. And, I think you're a more social guy. I'm a social guy. I just think James is more happy to be with his little circle. He's probably hanging in his man cave with a couple close people, maybe 1 or 2 friends and a couple family members. But I think that's who he is. He's more
his wife, and he actually has a baby now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got a kid.
So he might just go, you know what? I'm done with that. That was then, and I'm just going to stick in my little circle and do my own thing. There are a lot of people like that.
Well, actually, Villapoto was like that, and
I agree with that.
Interesting experience that we're all kind of watching right now is that Villapoto is now as
coming out of his shell a little bit,
as stepping into this ambassador role without the pressure of racing. Seems to be a much.
How about
friendlier,
that Yamaha deal? That came.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
I mean, I don't know if anyone else heard anything. I was a little bit like, oh wow.
Well, it was weird because a while back there was some talk about that, and it was just kind of like, everyone kind of pushed that off to rumors and stuff, but. Again, that Yamaha thing was out of the blue for me. Even being as close as I am, as close as I am to Cowie, you know what I mean. It's strange to think, but 2 weeks ago, I mean, just my observation. Obviously, I'm stoked. I hope it works for him. I mean, I know some people might have been confused when I did the Cowie thing, and it's been great. I love it. It's where I started, and I get to work with the Team Green kids, so we get to tie in the story. I mean, it's working. It's good. And with Villapoto doing what he did, I hope it really works. But what we didn't see 2 weeks ago is Villapoto and that big smile on his face and what he did this last week in Anaheim. it's going to take a lot to get the people to believe that that's real. You know what I mean? So that's why it's confusing with a lot of us. You know, I caught a little flack at you know, from some people, like, oh, that I pushed RV out that way, and that's not the case. The more the merrier with me. I think is if you want to work and do a good job and you know, be the ambassador that you can be, then I think it's a good thing. But if you don't, which we've seen in the last couple of years, that I don't know if you guys have observed this, but Ryan didn't look like, to me, like he was having the greatest time, and he almost seemed like he turned his back on the sport for a while.
Well, his departure was a very unceremonious.
Seems salty.
Yeah.
Seems a little salty.
And Ryan and I are friends, and I think he's a great guy, and he has a funny bone in him. He has that social aspect when he wants to, which we're seeing now. So I hope it works. I hope it turns out good for him.
Yeah, he seems like he put his retirement hat on and then started becoming more of someone you'd want to see, which is someone that seems like they're enjoying just day-to-day life.
Yeah, but you
know, some guys walk away from the sport and then they're almost a little bit depressed because they don't know what to do.
Right.
I think he was successful enough.
Still finding himself.
You know, he's got a good foundation. He did well for himself, both financially as well as the accolades. So he's still respected. And so for him, he's one of the few guys that seems almost happier now that he's done racing.
Well,
a lot of guys, it's a little bit the other way around, and then they get used to life after racing.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
Here's the thing. I think that people are not stupid. They can tell whether people can tell, fans can tell whether you like what you're doing or not.
Yeah.
It's easy to. I can sit here and tell you, regardless of you being Grant Langston, I can sit here and tell you that you love motorcycles.
Yeah.
You love the sport, and I'm sure that people can tell that about me. And that probably came into question sometimes with Ryan at times. However, I think it's awesome for the sport. I think it's good. If he's enjoying himself and having a good time, that's the most important part.
And you know what the thing is? He says he thinks that with what he's doing moving forward is going to bring some benefit and some things. And I'm a fan. I'm a racer. I own a dealership. I'm involved in the sport from commentating to analyzing, and I enjoy those aspects. And our sport needs anything that's going to help it thrive and do well.
Yeah.
Since the recession, our sport has had a decline, and we want to see the fans tuning in and asking questions and being involved and buying motorcycles. So if we can keep guys in, I mean, Ryan Villapoto, you know, he's got a huge fan following. If someone like that,
he's one of the greatest champions we've ever had.
If he can keep people thinking that besides you, he's only one to win 4 in a row. So like, for a lot of the younger generation, he's an idol. If he can come back and say, I love the sport, I'm involved, I'm keeping, I think it helps keep a certain captivity around there. So the more riders that are involved and give back and maybe do a little bit of coaching or do this or do kids camps or whatever. We've done all that.
Yeah, whatever
but you keep those people
stay involved.
Because he's got also a good following up in Washington. You've got a good following in South Africa. I've got a good following in South Africa and internationally. And if everyone can do a little piece towards that puzzle, it's just great for the sport. So whether it was a Yamaha or a Honda deal or a Suzuki, if it's what he's going to do with enthusiasm and be a benefit to the brand and to the sport, I think, like Jeremy said, the more the merrier. We've got to keep that stuff around and keep people involved.
I mean, I don't know. Jeremy, you're doing such an amazing job as an ambassador for Kawasaki. I think that you really stepped into that role, and you're a champion
and
in
for
that
the
role.
Sport in
and
general.
for the sport in general, right?
I think it's bigger than Kawasaki. Not
Agreed.
Jumping in with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But I think the bigger picture is he's been a role model for a lot of people for a long time, and that is huge.
Well, I think it's a role that I take pride in. I certainly love it. I love what I do. I love my motorcycle. I mean,
that I believed. I've seen that for a while.
This all boils down to the feeling we had when we got our first dirt bike when we were a kid. I mean, I still feel the same way. And, you know, it's easy to work in the industry when you have a lot of passion for it. And I think, you know, just like racing, I want to do a good job with whoever I'm working with. I'm really enjoying myself right now, having a blast, loving the sport. I love that we have a lot of competition this year for us to watch as fans. I still ride my dirt bike all the time. So, you know, it's not like it's not a difficult thing to do.
Well, you do an amazing job of it, and I think, for Villopoto sitting in that situation, for the people that wonder why he's, went to Yamaha, I think there's a great opportunity for him to try to do for Yamaha what you're doing for Kawasaki.
Well, I think
that's a cool thing.
I think that's right, and I think like in some ways, if he can look and see what I'm doing, maybe, and I know he doesn't want to be me, but maybe if he can follow a little bit like what I'm doing and try and emulate some of it. I mean,
he'll do it his way. He'll
put his spin on it.
Yeah.
But you got to get out there, and for a while it just seemed like he didn't want to get out there. So as weird as it may be, he did ride Yamahas when he was an amateur. So I mean, there is a tie-in there, and stoked for him.
Yeah, it did seem like a little bit of a bombshell to me, but I thought at the same time, these things, a lot of times there's been things behind the works for a while, and it's going to be interesting. I think if you look at it, Yamaha, maybe you could say they didn't really have a face to the brand at the moment.
Right.
Right. Well, what's funny is one of the things that related to this, the brand ambassador.
Don't get me wrong, I love Doug Dubach, but I think that day may have gone as
Dr.
the leader. Dr. D, I saw McGranahan the other day. Great guy, but, if you're a brand like that, you also want to have some star power, I think, attached to your brand.
That's what I was going to say. For a long time, even when we raced, there was no brand ambassador. You know what I mean? And I think it's good. Each team needs a guy. It's a good thing to have. And I think when there's a lot of requirements for the riders to do when we as brand ambassadors can take over some of the heat, take over some of those obligations that the pro riders would normally have to do. And I mean, I can tell you this: when I was racing, if I would have had someone else to go do some of the stuff that was required that we had to do, that would have been a really nice thing. We didn't. It wasn't that way when I raced, but
even just from the mental side, if you've got someone that's been there, done that, and you're an aspiring racer, and for me, if I had a chance to sit there and talk to you, I probably would have talked your ear off because I would have asked you so many questions because I wanted the knowledge. And I think it's always great, especially when someone's involved, because you're like, if he's out there crushing it through the whoops, if he can do it, there's no excuse why I can't. So I think the mental side, to have someone that's been there, done that, feeling like he's in your corner on your team,
right.
It's a huge help for the youth coming through.
The amateur program's going to really be stimulated from that. So, guys, we're actually...
I really wish I would have had someone to help me with that a little bit.
I'll be a funny guy for a second, but you didn't have a linkage, so it was a little tough.
I'm still missing a linkage in my brain, I think.
He was missing the linkage. Yeah.
So we're already over our show, but that's okay. We'll roll for a few more minutes because one of the things that a lot of people want, because we do what we want.
Right. It's our show.
Yeah. What a lot of people want, they want me to ask you guys about the people that are further down the results list, because these people are putting in sometimes way more at risk to be there. They're betting it all.
Right. So here's the thing. What I was going to say earlier with my question on what I thought about the new format of the races and about the semis. So one of the cons, I would say, to having the 2 heat races qualifying 9 would be we don't get to see those mid-pack guys anymore, right? We're not building the stars out of the middle of the field also. So
good point.
One of the things that I always said is...
So they get less time on the track.
Right, because all we're going to see now is our sports superstars. In the semis, we used to see the 8th and 9th place guys battling in the semi. And then,
get a win.
And then you guys and us, we're going to get to learn about these other guys. So that's my one knock on the format change. I agree. We probably need a shorter, tighter show for TV purposes or whatever. But, this goes back to this question right here. I like to know about the guys that are in the mid-pack guys. Those are the guys putting it on the line. Those are the guys in the vans showing up to the races, the whoever they are, the Jimmy Albertsons or whatever, trying to get to each race each week.
As if we don't have enough of that talk going on this feed here already.
Right.
His alter ego, I mean.
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
Well, the other thing too is, and it might be a little bit out there, but I also like the thought of going to this other format where I kind of like the idea a little bit. Take your fastest 20 guys and just maybe run 3 mains of 8 laps, say in the 250s and 10 laps.
Which they are going to do, right?
Which I think, because for the fans it's simple, meaning the math. The best out of,
I would agree. I would totally agree with you.
And everyone's just racing. So your guy goes down the first turn. There's 2 more chances for him.
Right.
So he could pick it up off the first turn and get back to 5th, but maybe a 5-1-1
can do it.
Got the overall and got the win.
Right.
I don't know. I think there's some coolness to that. And
I kind of like that. I'm excited to see the format when they do the 3-moto thing. I think it's going to be cool.
Well, I'm going to drop some names.
However, they went and made the format kind of crazy, right? It's like 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. That's going to be the 3 motos. Why mess up the simplicity of it instead of making it 10 laps, 10 laps, 10 laps like they do at Monster Cup? It's just a little strange to me. I love the idea of switching the format up. And I think
it's a strategy curveball that these guys are going to have to kind of figure out what their angle is.
If you take the 10 lap, 10 lap, 10 lap, 30 laps, that's about the same amount of time you get in a normal
8-lap heat race.
Right, and you get a normal format. So I don't know why they went and did that, but some of the things that they do, we just don't know.
I'm going to throw some names from lower on the list here at you guys just to give them some recognition because I think they deserve it. Interesting one. We didn't see him. Usually he makes a little bit of a splash, but Vince Freeze.
He was there, right? And
I saw him.
13th.
I have to look at my
13th.
13th's not bad.
It's not bad. Yeah.
Especially when you look at the depth and who he finished right behind.
I think he rocked. That's pretty good.
We'll give him a rock.
He finished right behind Blake Baggett. Yeah.
He didn't get in a fist fight. That's a good.
so that's a plus.
We're making progress.
Didn't T-bone anyone.
We're taking swings around the track.
Tyler Bowers,
not competitors.
So Bowers, who has been a front runner in the past, very talented dude. He didn't.
He's another guy. He's another guy you would see in a semi, winning a semi, right? I mean, style's good. He's been around for a long time. Rides great. So with that,
multi-time arena cross champ,
right?
He's a good rider, and that's why
he's on a privateer bike.
He's not on the dream team at the moment. I don't think he's on a good bike,
and that's why probably a lot of fans are bringing this up because you've got well-recognized riders or riders with good credentials that you're looking at deeper in the pack, going, "Oh wow."
So I think a better question to this would be, was there any guys that we expected to make the main that didn't? Right? Because essentially you take Baggett was 12th, 13th was Freeze, 14th was
Bowers, 15th
so there's
was
really,
Reed.
Yeah, there's really like
Cunningham 16th.
Another decent good
Ben
rider.
LeMay 17th, Alex Ray 18th, Bashaglia 19th, Dakota Tedder 20th. Expected a little more out of Dakota.
Right.
I was hoping he would. push it forward.
But let's be honest, Dakota Tedder is
12th.
someone that may not make a main event if things don't go well because there's enough depth. So
and
that's a good point.
Adam Ectinap.
Enticknap, yeah.
Yes. Anyways, the 7 deuce 21st.
Realistically, there's 7 guys that the question poses, right? There's 7 guys.
Every single one of them beat Eli Tomac.
Yep. So, I mean, there's 7 guys probably that aren't really factory riders out there. And
that's pretty much.
That's not a lot. I mean, that makes for a stacked field. So
if you got 6 factory teams, at least 2 riders a team, there's your top dozen, and then you've got factory back teams like the Team Baggett's on and
right. What's that Rocky Mountain ATV team?
Yep.
Has 2 riders, so that's 4 KTM guys, 2 Husqvarna guys, which Wilson had problems, so there was only Anderson in the final for that. It fills up quick, and you have 7 guys that can make the main that are not those famous guys that we know, not the factory guys or whatever. So it's a tough spot. Do you think it's easier to make the main with a qualifying 9 like that out of 2 heats, or do you think it's easier to qualify 4 and then 5 out of the semi?
Well, it depends. I mean, I was trying to remember back in your day, you had an evening where you had to go to the LCQ. I think your rear brakes kept locking up on the Honda.
Well, what happened was it was a soft track, and you had a up on and a off, right? So up on a table and then jump off. When I jump up on the table, dirt went in the brake, stuck the brake down. And it happened twice that night. And then, the heat race I crashed real bad. That was at Pontiac. Then in the semi, I got the dirt in the brake, and then I finally made it in the LCQ. But thank God. Thank goodness that didn't happen.
It does
often.
make it, just having the heat in the LCQ, it makes it a little nerve-wracking for any rider because anything can happen in the heat. Now you get to LCQ, it's not like, well, if this doesn't work out, there's still the last shot.
They're qualifying 2 out of the LCQ or
4?
4. So,
yeah. But the point is, I mean, we saw
one shot.
Remember Villapoto the year he was leading the championship? He didn't qualify one night. Went down the first turn of the heat race. Almost the same thing in the LCQ. So as a top rider, I would prefer the Heat Semi LCQ because I feel like that's the security blanket. Like I'll always make every main event. Yeah. When there's 2 chances, things can happen.
Yeah.
I mean, happening once is normal. Twice is also not that uncommon. So I wouldn't be surprised to see throughout the year
we saw that out of Martin last year. Or was it last year?
Yeah. We're going to see. I think we're going to see at a race or two where everyone's going to be going, oh, my gosh, can you believe so-and-so didn't qualify?
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
I mean, in my mind, it simplifies the concept of the night show and all that stuff, but at the same time, we're not going to get to know better those 7 guys that aren't the factory riders. You know what I mean? We're not going to see the Tedders, and we're not going to see the Cunninghams, and we're not going to see, whoever else it might be that are winning those semis or getting up there and getting a TV interview, and which broadens the level of the sport, I think. So
I think we've come to there's pros and cons. I
Jersey
think,
time?
both way.
Jersey time? You got a question?
I think it's Jersey time, and I don't have the question that really is jumping off the map to me. There's a lot of just sort of, chatter going on here, and it's some great chatter. It's fun to see you guys chatting.
By the way, we're gonna pin this whole jersey giveaway on Dan because he's gonna be the one.
Yeah, he's the one that just saying you guys are a bunch of chatter. He's the one putting you guys down. I was gonna say thanks for interacting, but he's the slave driver over here.
Well,
Jeremy and I are pretty cool.
Yeah, he's the one that's looking up the questions and everything. So we're gonna go ahead and pin that on you.
So go ahead, take a few minutes, throw a couple questions at us. I would like to pick one right now, but it's going to have to be a banger because this is the legitimate Jeremy Mcgrath jersey right here. Is this worn?
It's brand new.
This is brand new. Okay,
I can
throw it on real quick or something.
Throw it on, yeah.
You did sneeze on it earlier, so I think we saw it.
Yeah.
So throw us a couple questions. We're going to be we would like to get to them, and let's see here if we get some good ones popping in right now. It's been really fun rapping with you guys and getting to talk moto. It's just so awesome that we're back to racing right now.
Right. I think it's cool. We all, as fans, we have a lot to talk about. And I think last week's race was awesome and didn't disappoint for sure. Should have some great racing this weekend. And
it's going to be a bit of a shock for them going straight from California to Houston. Usually they've stayed on the West Coast for a while, so that could be, in my opinion, I think it's going to help some guys and possibly hurt some guys to go to. Like you were saying, the dirt is being brought in that's pretty wet, and Houston typically breaks down more anyway.
Yeah.
So it could be a track that suits maybe someone like Jeremy Martin a little bit more,
right.
Or we were talking like Dean Wilson could maybe have a great bounce back this weekend.
To your point, when the races start out here on the West, typically they race 4 or 5 rounds out here.
Yeah.
And it's usually the same sort of dirt.
It used to be
style.
6. I always remember it was always 6 when I was here.
With the exception of San Diego sometimes, because San Diego could get some weather. So
it was always open.
Sometimes that was could be the wild card in the first 6 rounds. Now they're going to Houston, which you're going to get some of that clay, that soft, ruddy dirt on round 2. Of course, they're going to be back in Anaheim for round 3, so they won't be there long. But you're right, that could throw a wrench in some guys' programs, and it probably won't affect some of the guys that have been training in Florida, Georgia, some of the places back there. But the guys that train out here in California haven't ridden on that kind of stuff for a while, so we're going to see what happens.
I think it'll shake some things up. I think you'll see some movers and some shakers, and I think certain riders will find their groove, and some guys that had a good opening round may just struggle a little bit this weekend.
All right, so we got a question. I'm going to throw it at you, and I think it's an interesting question. And the question is geared to you, Jeremy. If you, at your prime, could race anyone from the past or present, who would it be? Who's on that list that, I'd like to have you on my best day?
Well, you guys know this question has been proposed to every past champion, every rider, every good rider and factory rider there ever was. If I could put you in your prime against this guy in his prime, the athlete and the former athlete and the former, champion in me would say, look, I would take anybody on, right? Because I think at my best in Supercross, there's nobody that could beat me. I don't care what era it is. It wouldn't matter. Who I would like to race and have the most fun with, I had a couple races with RC that I really enjoyed. I really love racing with Wyndham. I think as much as I love Ricky Johnson, and he was one of my heroes when I was a kid, I think racing against him might have been a little tough because I think he's one of those guys that, he wasn't afraid to let you know, and he was also not afraid to like put it on you a little bit. So that would have been.
He's a tough bastard. For lack of better terms.
He's thorn in your side. I think he could be related to, but maybe David Bailey would have been a good one, or Johnny O. I mean, always like Ron Lachine sometimes had some. As much as I loved him, he could have some crazy, crazy riding. But
I from the outside,
I'd take any one of them.
I almost like the thought of maybe someone like David Bailey, because I think he was the guy that was one of the first that I remember that I can think of. I didn't study everyone. I only got what I could as a kid. It was on VHS, whatever I could pirate from somebody.
Yeah.
But like David Bailey, to me, was one of the guys that made the sport of motocross and supercross a bit of a science.
Right.
And I think Jeremy brought that
like art
with the flamboyant and everything with that. And I almost feel like maybe in their prime, I think, if you ask me,
if we raced,
I think Bailey and McGrath would have been a beautiful thing to watch.
That would have been a cool show, I think. Yep.
So Bailey and McGrath,
that's my one. I don't know what his one is. I just jumped in on that one.
I think that'd be good.
I like that. All right. Well, shoot. I think we'll I'll have to dig their name up here to tell it again, but I think that's who should get our jersey. What do you guys think?
I think it's a good one.
Yeah. Putting it on
question
you.
Too. It's
for
Nick
all of you
Mattia.
for all of you that didn't win.
So
send your hate mail to Dan at
yes
Gmail.
Something like that. Something like that.
Some poor Dan's getting a hate mail right now, left,
Dan
right, and center.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Gmail.
Hashtag no excuses.
Yeah.
There was a lot of questions, a lot of great ones, and so we had a great time chatting with you guys tonight. It's really been my pleasure. On behalf of the Attain Media House crew, that has really been awesome for us. We want to say thank you to those guys. We want to say thank you to Jeremy for inviting us into his home here, to my co-hosts here, Grant Langston and Jeremy McGrath. My name is Dan McGranahan. Thank you for tuning in to the Action Sports Show.
Later,
we
guys.
will catch you soon.